best Joe Rogan stories to fall asleep to. These are some of the best and most fascinating stories from the Joe Rogan podcast that you can watch to fall asleep. From near-death experiences to the world wars, mysteries that have lasted decades, and even real encounters with serial killers. Still alive. In episode 1927 of the Joe Rogan Experience, featuring wildlife biologist Forrest Galante, delivers an incredible dense and conversational journey across the spectrum of the natural world, from mythological creatures and harrowing survival stories to the cutting-edge science of de-extinction. The conversation kicks off with a discussion of Galante's book, Still Alive, which prompts Rogan to bring up Galante's search for the red wolf, often confused locally with the Ozark howler. Galante offers a brilliant theory that demystifies the cryptid. The howler sightings occurred precisely when red wolf numbers were plummeting, causing the scattered wolves to howl more frequently to locate one another. Adding to the myth was the fact that local moonshiners perpetuated the spooky rumors to deter people from entering their woods. It's a fascinating insight into how ecological change, combined with human self-interest, creates legend.
Dude, I watched your show the other day, the television show. What is the television show?
Mysterious Creatures?
Yes.
The new one? Yeah.
And you were looking for some wolf thing?
The red wolf.
Yes,
yeah.
But they didn't think it was a red wolf. They thought it was like some mystical
howler.
beast.
An Ozark howler.
Oh my goodness. Which, wolves do howl.
Yeah. No, that was an interesting story. If you look at the timeline from when this cryptid, this howler popped up, it's right when the red wolf was starting to plummet in its numbers. And as soon as wolves plummet, they call to each other, right? They howl.
Ah, that makes sense.
So it's like, oh, we're hearing this thing and the spooky thing that we've seen running around the woods. And it's like, well, yeah, it's wolves trying to find each other.
Ah.
And it happened to also overlap with when moonshining was like a big deal. So they perpetuated the rumor of the howler to keep people out of the woods.
Right.
So it like checked all these boxes to like make up.
Galante quickly turns to the animals he finds genuinely compelling, such as the giant ground sloth, Megatherium, and the thylacine, Tasmanian tiger. While the thylacine is declared extinct, Galante argues that credible sightings and existing video footage mean it could still be considered a cryptid. Finding proof, however, is a barrier to entry, requiring complex and expensive expeditions with helicopter support and ground teams. Rogan notes that even finding common apex predators like mountain lions is rare in dense areas, making Galante's twice-attempted thylacine search feel like a monumental task. The discussion shifts to humanoid cryptids, like the orang pendek. Analyzing shaky motorcycle footage, Rogan suggests that people love humanoids, but Galante offers a practical explanation. The supposed creature is tiny, perhaps a 4-foot-tall human, and may simply be a rebellious, startled teenager from an isolated tribe, crossing a road while hunting. This skeptical view is grounded in reality of human diversity, referencing Homo floresiensis, the little hobbit person who coexisted with modern humans relatively recently.
Is there any cryptid that you find compelling?
Just I think we talked about it before, the Megatherium, the giant ground sloth in Peru.
Yeah.
That's the only one. I mean, depends what you define as cryptid, right? Like, I'm not a Bigfoot guy or a Loch Ness monster, but thylacine could be considered a cryptid, right?
Yeah, because it was alive. We do have video footage of it, and there's been a bunch of sightings.
Yes, but now you have all these Bigfoot-esque people, right? All these sort of tinfoil hat guys who are like, it's here, I've seen it, or whatever. And so it's like started to fade into this cryptid realm. And I still think that in Papua New Guinea, there could be an extant population.
Why in Papua New Guinea?
So they used to range, we got right into this. This is great, by the way. So they used to range from PNG, from New Guinea, all the way down to Tasmania. And then as people came over, they brought dingoes with them, right? And this was like 4,000 years ago. And then the dingoes outcompeted the thylacine in mainland Australia and, in theory, in Papua New Guinea. But dingoes were never introduced into Tasmania, which is why thylacine occurred for so much longer in Tasmania. However, why in Papua New Guinea is because it's such a dramatic habitat. There's so many like valleys and canyons and things that dingoes just probably couldn't traverse. That would mean that there's isolated, unexplored areas that the thylacine, because it had evolved there, could still be thriving without the competition.
And for people who don't know what a thylacine is, it's a Tasmanian tiger.
Yeah. It's a marsupial,
Yeah.
wolf, crazy jaw, stripes.
Crazy jaw. Like really wild looking.
180 degrees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool looking animal. Like,
Yeah.
Look at that thing.
So when you talk about, cryptids and blah, 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 I still think that these animals could be out there.
Didn't you go looking for one at one point in time?
Twice.
Twice.
Yeah.
And did you have any sightings or any, at least, amongst the people that you were around, or any credible reports?
No.
Nothing?
Well, reports, yes. I mean, there's a guy named Nick Mooney who is like an incredible, that's Benjamin, the last living thylacine in the zoo in Hobart, Tasmania. A guy named Nick Mooney who's like a state biologist, like renowned naturalist and biologist who has no reason to make this up or anything, and he swears that he saw one in Tasmania about 25 years ago. And he's like, I know every animal in Tasmania. I am a biologist. I work with Fish and Game or fish, whatever their equivalent is. He's like, why would I make this up? He's like, I didn't even tell anybody for a year or two because I didn't want to be called a kook.
Wow.
And then he came out with it and sort of began this whole thing. But yeah, I mean, definitely some credible.
The shocking reality of human isolation proves just as compelling as any cryptid hunt. Rogan shares the astonishing story of Christopher Knight, the North Pond hermit who lived alone in the woods of Maine for 27 years, surviving by stealing supplies from camps. Even more powerful is a story of the Vietnamese father and son who, after fleeing the Vietnam War, lived hidden in the jungle for 41 years, surviving off rats and wearing loincloths made of tree bark. The sheer desperation required to maintain such a life, including eating rat head as a staple food, is a deeply sobering reflection on human resilience in the face of conflict. The conversation lightens with a hilarious but utterly terrifying series of wildlife and human body mishaps. Galante recounts working in the Amazon and having a cameraman affectionately nicknamed Boogie stung by a parasitic wasp right on the tip of his penis. The usually stoic military medic's audible shock, "Oh shit," confirmed the injury, which Galante recounts resulted in a head so severely swollen it looked like a baby's arm holding an apple.
Well, imagine if there was a very small population of mountain lions or Tasmanian tigers, and, you went looking in a much more wooded area, much more dense environment.
Much larger, too. Huge swaths of unpopulated land. And if they were intelligent and cryptic like a mountain lion, which they probably were because they were at the top of the food chain, they know and they choose not to be seen. Like P-22, right? The mountain lion that lived in L.A.
We have a big photo of him out here.
The one with the Hollywood sign?
Yeah. It's a great picture.
I love that photo.
Yeah.
He's
just dead now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But
did they kill him? Did they euthanize?
They euthanized him. Yeah.
Something was wrong with him, right? Like he was badly injured.
I think he got hit by a car. I think. Don't quote me on that. But yeah, there was some injury. I think it was a car strike, and he was an old cat as well. So yeah.
What do you think of the orang pendek?
I think it's interesting. Have you ever seen that motorcycle video where the guy's on the motorcycle and he sees the little guy run across?
Yeah.
So that's supposed to be orang pendek, right? And
well, let's see if we can find that.
Sure.
That one is weird because there you go. Here, is that real?
It's so, and is this a kid? Well, that one looks
fake.
over embellished. But if you watch the actual video, so this is the video I've seen. I think that we love humanoids. As a species, we love the idea.
Just play the video.
It does not. It doesn't play. It's all still frames.
All of it?
It's all someone talking about this. It's not the video.
Oh, well, that looks so fake.
Yeah, it does.
That's a still frame of it. But that could just be a naked dude.
Totally.
That
could
totally
be a crazy
looks like
person.
a dude.
Yeah.
That doesn't even look that hairy.
But I think
look at the proportions. Looks like a person. Did they have something to judge it by? I've seen the actual video though, Jamie. See if we can find the actual video because that's not it.
Yeah, this is the same one I've seen.
Yeah.
And I think in relation to the motorcycle and the guy, even though there's some forced perspective, it's tiny.
Yes.
Right? So it looks like a dude, but that would be like a
The story, combined with the equally horrifying fact that the Candiru catfish will swim up the human urethra and cannot be removed due to reverse-facing spines, serves as a vivid and darkly funny counterpoint to the naive yoga instructor who believes going into the woods with a prayer will protect her from being eaten. Galante rightly calls this perspective misinformed, arguing that nature is chaos, not harmony. The discussion pivots to diet, where Rogan explains he's on a carnivore diet, finding that adding fruit, a nod to Paul Saladino's approach, provides the necessary energy that pure carnivores lacked. Galante floats the theory that the aggression sometimes associated with the carnivore diet isn't due to the meat, but rather the absence of the sedative effects of highly processed carbohydrates like bread and pasta. This explanation is real to me. I often feel mentally handicapped after consuming high-carb meals. The critique of mainstream nutrition continues with their outrage over a food chart that ranked Lucky Charms higher than eggs, proof that big food corporations and financial interests corrupt the science.
Last time we hung out, you were doing pure carnivore.
Yeah, I'm
How
doing
was
that
that
now.
You're doing it now?
Yeah, because it's January.
Ah.
January's World Carnivore Month. I don't know who fucking made that up, but yeah.
Why not?
I mixed in a little fruit. I eat fruit because I find when I don't do that, and I did straight carnivore for the first few days, I think like the first 8 or 9 days. But it was, it's hard. I was slogging through workouts.
Just no energy?
Yeah. like just and they say there's an adjustment period, just like keto. You know, they call it like have you ever done a keto diet?
Not for more than like a week at a time.
It takes a while to really get your body to turn ketogenic and to start burning fat instead of carbohydrates. And it's there's a thing they call the keto flu, where it feels like almost like you got the flu. Where
That
you're like,
sounds awful.
Not really like the flu. It's a bad way of describing it. It's more like you're not well rested.
Gotcha.
So like when I would work out, I would like have to really push through these workouts.
Mm-hmm.
Like you feel like you're missing a gear.
Sure.
That's what it feels
Just
like.
none of that extra ATP to like burn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You can't get into fourth gear. It's weird. It's like it doesn't feel good.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm just saying, but when I added fruit, that goes away.
That's what I was going to ask. Yeah. After we hung out and you were doing that, I read Paul Saladino's book, The Carnivore Code, I think it's called, a carnivore diet, the one where he eats meat, fruit, and honey and bases it, because like he's been on your show before, right? Yeah, so I read his book, and I thought it was really interesting, you know, the whole idea of like those are the most sought after foods in the world, and they are for most cultures, but definitely.
This discussion of misinformation leads to a scathing critique of the COVID-19 pandemic response. Rogan and Galante condemn the media for promoting an irresponsible level of fear. Galante provides a heartbreaking anecdote. His friend died from a rock climbing accident during the height of the hysteria, and his parents were forced to say goodbye over Zoom because hospital visitation was banned. This tragedy, driven by heightened and perhaps manufactured fear, is a powerful example of the non-viral harm caused by the pandemic response. Turning to macro conservation, Galante pulls no punches, stating that humans suck at it and desperately need radical conservation. He highlights the historical genocide of the American bison, whose slaughter was primarily motivated not by food, but by a campaign to starve and subjugate Native Americans, forcing them onto reservations. The scale of this destruction, where pictures show hunters standing on mountains of skulls, is inexcusable. Galante then draws a connection to modern ecological disasters, describing his heartbreak after driving for 2 days in Borneo and seeing nothing but endless monoculture oil palm plantations, replacing vibrant jungle habitat for cheap ingredients.
The fact they brought smallpox as well and killed 90% of the Native Americans.
Yeah, that's
nuts.
That's a little worse.
Yeah, when you tell people that, because so many people,
The final and most exciting segment focuses on Galante's belief in radical solutions, specifically de-extinction. He details the work of Colossal Biosciences, which is actively working to clone the woolly mammoth using Indian elephant DNA and CRISPR technology. This seemingly fantastical idea has crucial environmental purpose. Mammoths kept the Arctic tundra cold by clearing vegetation and stomping snow, trapping colossal amounts of carbon in the permafrost. Their reintroduction, projected as early as 2024, could potentially slow the release of carbon emissions.
For it. But what I think so fascinating, the reason I'm so like emotionally invested in it, is the conservation implications that it has. Because what this company is ultimately doing is rewilding species that humans have removed. And that's going to, in theory, in a lot of places, sort of fix the offset, the imbalance of the ecosystem.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. There's a lot of debate about whether or not humans killed off the woolly mammoth, though, isn't there?
I think there is. Yeah, I think there is. And I can't really speak on that, but I do know that when the mammoths disappeared, so the Arctic used to be like the savannas of Africa. It used to be big grasslands, right? It wasn't all covered in trees and things. And that's a recent adaptation since the mammoths went away 10, 20,000 years ago. And so that's what's happened is the permafrost up there is melting pretty rapidly, right? Underneath that permafrost is like 1.5 trillion tons of carbon. And once that carbon enters the atmosphere, it heats things up like crazy. So by removing those mammoths, and I can explain why the mammoths keep it colder, but by removing those mammoths, it's allowing that permafrost to melt much quicker and release more carbon. So the idea from like a financial standpoint of how they make money is the carbon offset of putting mammoths back.
Tom Bundy. The flow of this Joe Rogan Experience episode, energized by Chris DiStefano's newfound glow-up and a spontaneous hit of smelling salts, takes a dark and fascinating detour into the realm of true crime and the unsettling proximity of evil. The trigger for this chilling segment comes when Rogan mentions the Idaho murderer suspect, Brian Kohberger. Rogan observes that Kohberger looks like Ryan Holiday, the proponent of Stoicism, leading DiStefano to quip that he thought the Stoic movement's figurehead was a mass murderer. This brief moment of dark humor pivots quickly into genuine dread as DiStefano shares a shocking family anecdote involving one of the 20th century's most infamous killers, Ted Bundy.
Yeah, they pulled him over, and it was in his parents' house. And because remember, the media was saying, we don't have any leads, but the FBI was following him across the country.
Yeah, they can't just leak
you
all
can't
that
do
information. They're in the middle of an investigation of a fucking psycho.
But it is wild, like with these he's famous now for these murders, but as you said, could be stuff before. My mom had a friend, right? Grew up in Utah. Maybe she's 18, 19 years old, whatever year, 70s, 80s, whatever. Goes on a date with a guy, right? Normal date, just met him, I think at the supermarket. Goes on a date with this guy, and she's at the table with him, and she feels very like a ominous feeling looking at this man. She's like, I'm looking at him, and I can see like there's nothing behind his eyes, like there's just something that I don't like about this guy. So to the point where she has never done this, she was only 18, but since this has never done this, she went to a payphone at the restaurant, called her brother, and was like, can you please come pick me up like immediately? And stayed in the bathroom until her brother was outside and went in the car and left. And she was like, I'm just creeped out by this guy. I can't explain it. I'm creeped out. All this energy, I'm creeped out. Now, this man had picked her up from her house. So the brother had a paper route. He's leaving the next morning at 5 a.m., sees some ruffling in the bushes, okay? Crazy, right? Like whatever, sees a guy running out of the bushes, says, holy shit, whatever, runs back in the house, tells his mom and dad, sister wakes up, says he was wearing like a beige jacket. She's like, that's the guy I was on a date with. Like that, he was like waiting, he must have been like waiting for me, right? Whatever. Goes on, life goes on, what a psycho, lunatic boyfriend. 3 years later, Ted Bundy on the news. She was on a date with Ted Bundy before he had committed any murders, or he had committed murders but had not been famous for it yet, had not been convicted of it yet. She said when he saw him, she literally almost fell out of her chair because she was like, that look. She said that Ted Bundy, about, how everyone says he's so handsome, whatever, she said he would get a look over him when he was preying on a victim, which felt she was being preyed on, that she doesn't even look, he's like, he does not look like that. His face configures and contorts to something that looks so sinister that she literally was like, get me away from him now. So I was like, whoa, fucking Teddy B. Imagine you on a date with a young Teddy B.
This realization is profoundly disturbing. It speaks to the idea that evil sometimes casts an observable shadow, a palpable energy that alerts the attuned. It makes me wonder how many times people ignored that gut feeling before Bundy escalated to murder. DeStefano notes that based on the timelines of Bundy's crimes, his first murders were in the Utah region. When his mother's friend went on that date in 1978, he'd already been connected to other murders. This wasn't just a weird date. It was an escape from death, orchestrated by an intuitive call to a brother.
He had already committed murders. So he was already, and so he was looking to murder her, and he was giving that energy out.
She said, based off when all his crimes were exposed, from what the FBI said, when she went on a date with him, let's say it was 1978, he had already been connected to murders in other parts of that. Because his first murders were in like the Utah region, and that's where they were.
Holy shit.
Wild, right?
Holy shit.
Dude, fucking, it's pretty.
The discussion continues with other true crime connections through DeStefano's girlfriend's uncle, T.T. Jerry, who served time with infamous murderers. T.T. Jerry was in prison with the son of Sam and Ronald DeFeo Jr., the man who killed his family in the Amityville horror house. DeStefano recounts T.T. Jerry's startling claim that David Berkowitz, son of Sam, did not commit all the murders, suggesting he was part of a cult and other murderers got away with it, a theory that later gained credence in a Netflix documentary. Even more disturbing was T.T. Jerry's assessment of DeFeo, calling him the biggest fucking lunatic, who would calmly describe killing his family every morning over breakfast. The horrific detail that DeFeo genuinely believed that if he didn't kill his grandmother, he wouldn't get into heaven provides a gut-wrenching insight into profound mental derangement.
And I think I might have said this on the last one, but T.T. Jerry, when she was in prison, served prison time with the son of Sam. She shared a wall with the son of Sam. Two murderers. She shared a wall with the son of Sam and Ronald DeFeo from the Amityville horror house, the man who killed all those people in the movie The Amityville Horror, who was really based off Ronald DeFeo. She was in prison with both of them at the same time, and the prisoners from Escape from Dannemora, who like that Showtime show that they made. So she was in like real deal prisoners. But she said the son of Sam. Now this was months before the Netflix documentary came out. T.T. Jerry said, she's like, the son of Sam, David, did not kill all those people. He was involved in a cult. There were other murderers, but the city pinned it all on him. And then a few months later, this Netflix documentary came out a couple of years ago, basically saying that most likely son of Sam did not kill all those people. He killed maybe one or two, but there was other murderers that just got.
These stories of ingrained, almost casual evil, from the stalking of Ted Bundy to the psychotic calm of Ronald DeFeo, serve as a sharp counterpoint to the more mundane anxieties that begin the podcast. It highlights the vast, terrifying spectrum of human behavior and reinforces why we are often so captivated and terrified by the true nature of monsters among us. Study the darkness. This is going to get real crazy. David Goggins' 30-day challenge. Let's talk about the time Jesse Slur shared what happened when he invited David Goggins to live with him for 31 days. You know Goggins, the bald, brutally honest ex-Navy SEAL that everyone calls the toughest and most disciplined man alive. This conversation with David Goggins is not just an interview. It's a deep plunge into the philosophy of relentless suffering, mental mastery, and the terrifying realities that forge one of the world's most disciplined minds.
Better. And so many people get it wrong, and I don't give a fuck, man. You can't, for me, I cannot help people. There's a lot of cookie cutter shit out here in this world. Oh, discipline, wake up early, take a cold shower, fuck this, fuck that, whatever. It's all fucking bullshit. It's not. But what they don't teach you within the cookie cutter is like our minds are like a fucking garage. And the garage, if you open a garage and it's all cluttered up, it's all fucked up, you can't put your car in there. You got fucking boats and you got fucking kids' toys and shit everywhere. But if you organize that fucking garage and you put everything in its rightful spot, you can pull that car in there. You can put two cars in there. You can put bikes in there. And that's like with the mind. People talk about discipline and fucking determination and fucking, repetitions and all this shit. Consistency. Why people fall off the wagon so often is because their mind is full of shit.
The discussion begins with Joe Rogan marveling at Goggins' non-stop grind. Goggins reveals he never takes conventional vacations. Instead, he relies on mental aid stations, brief moments of rest, like being in the shower, the car, or while eating, which allow him to stay focused and avoid mental burnout. I find this framework incredibly useful. It shifts the goal from achieving complete rest, often impossible, to strategically managing energy in small increments throughout the day. Goggins admits that he would have retired a long time ago, but he feels a powerful sense of responsibility, driven by emails from people like fucking Tommy, whose strength comes from knowing Goggins is still grinding.
Like everybody knows, it's 24 hours in a day, but when I'm in the shower, it's a mental aid station. I don't think about shit. I don't fucking think about people. I don't think about work. I don't think about running. I don't think about working out. When I'm in the car, another fucking mental aid station. When I'm fucking eating, mental aid station. So people eat and they work and all that sort of shit, man. So I can grind hard because a lot of times, man, I'm in mental fucking aid stations, chilling.
So you have little mini vacations.
Mini vacations, man, all day long. All day long.
Do you feel now almost a responsibility to like stay at it all the time because so many people are watching and paying attention and drawing inspiration from you?
100%. I mean, like, I probably would have retired a long time ago, but I get these emails from people, and it's like they're living through me. Like, their strength comes through what they know I'm doing. So there's so many times I want to get up and say, oh man, fuck it, man, I got mine, I'm good. And I'm like, fucking Tommy out there, motherfucker. Fucking Tommy talking about.
Tommy in his email.
Tommy talking about fucking,
he saved his life.
Man, I ran 10 miles last night because of you, man.
This duty to maintain authenticity leads Goggins to sharply criticize the growing industry of motivational speakers who are very unqualified. Their material is brainstormed while sitting on their fucking ass, whereas his knowledge is earned entirely from the suck. Goggins' core teaching is to perform without purpose. He stresses that people wait for a 5K or a marathon to motivate them. But true mental toughness means getting up and doing the hard shit when your life fucking sucks and nothing else. The alternative, he contends, is walking around all day knowing you could, but you didn't, leaving you feeling like a little bitch. The most visceral and shocking part of the conversation centers on the physical toll Goggins has endured. Rogan highlights the astonishing fact that Goggins runs every day despite having knees that are completely destroyed. Goggins clarifies that he wasn't born healthy, mentioning sickle cell and poor body alignment. The visual evidence is appalling. Rogan describes the X-ray, showing zero space between those bones, with the tibia and femur rubbing up against each other. He even ran 240-mile races after getting baseball-sized Baker's cyst drained just days before. When he finally underwent a seemingly simple cleanup surgery, his entire lower leg just dangled, completely destabilized. He eventually had to undergo a high tibial osteotomy, HTO, a brutal surgery where they cut and wedged his shin bone to realign the pressure onto the healthy side of his knee. The willingness to endure constant pain for years demonstrates a mental fortitude that defies normal human boundaries.
Doing this every day in constant pain.
Right.
What is it like?
Well, I don't suggest...
Explain your knees, first of all.
So, okay. So, people think that my knees are bad from a lot of running, and they're wrong. I wasn't born healthy. I wasn't born with some great body alignment, some great, I have sickle cell, I have all kind of shit. I have all kind of health issues, I'm fucked up. So I had a choice to make. And the choice was, growing up, okay, this hurts, that hurts. We can just sit down and do nothing. Or we can see how far we can push the human body. So on that journey, as I started getting more and more into my mind and start realizing that what I'm capable of doing, my mind got stronger. So the pain in my knees, while it sucked, I've been doing it for so long. It was like it became my new norm. Like, okay, my knees hurt, fuck it. Stop, and I call it like stop feeling sorry for yourself, but you sometimes have to ignore your...
This physical mastery is only a byproduct of his mental approach, which is about going beyond talent. Goggins views his mind as a fucking garage cluttered with insecurities and unorganized worries. The first step to discipline is clearing space in that mental garage. He explains that he doesn't gain knowledge in the light. Happiness is easy, but by studying the darkness, treating suffering and painful moments as a mental lab. He collects these insights by taking mental snapshots and consciously writes his material from scratch, accessing the mindset of the broken, former version of himself, because that's where the real growth happens. The competitive streak that drives him surfaces during the story of his intense session with Cam Haines. The two friends ran 20 miles, holding a grueling 6-minute mile pace, fueled by a prideful test of wills. Immediately after, they followed up with a masochistic weightlifting session, utilizing massive supersets of high reps with light weight. The relationship is fascinating. They love each other, but they are constantly waiting for the other motherfucker to break.
We don't need to be taught how to live in happiness. That just comes naturally to us. Happy moments, but the dark times, man, you can't get there unless you put yourself there. Life will take you there. But when you get into those dark moments, that's why people, how are you able, man, I couldn't fucking read and write till I was a junior in high school. How are you able to write like this, man? Motherfucker, I go to such places in my mind and I study the darkness. Like, it's not just physical. When I was growing up and I saw my mom getting beaten, I got beat, and I was some stuttering little black kid in an all-white school, and I'm on stage and I gotta say one fucking line in front of fucking 15 people, and I walk off stage kind of fucking stutter. All those insecurities and all those fucking things, man. I used to go home and fucking cry. I'm like, oh my God, man, I'm fucked up. I'm so fucked up. Hang on, man. As I got older, we gotta study this shit, man. The only way we're gonna fucking get through this is if we study it. So every time I'm in a dark moment and life's fucked up around me, whether it be physical or just life, I get in it, man, with a fucking pen and paper. I'm like, okay, this fucking sucks. I can feel like I'm fucking losing my shit, but let's fucking study this. Let's come out of this motherfucker a genius. You know, I studied the black matter of the mind.
Goggins then connects his psychological strength back to his origin story. He describes going back to visit his abusive father, hoping to get the confirmation that his past failures weren't his fault, so he could accept being a loser. Instead, seeing his father relapse into the same belligerent behavior confirmed that his father had never faced his own demons, forcing Goggins to face his. Even more tragically, Rogan in Goggins recounts his mother's experience of marrying a prisoner who had murdered a woman. Goggins was about to leave for Air Force boot camp when he learned this. The horrific detail that his mother would lie awake at night wondering, is this motherfucker gonna kill me tonight, is a gut-wrenching insight into the trauma that shaped Goggins' need to protect his mother and man up. I believe that kind of early life exposure to chaos is the only way to develop the deep emotional resilience Goggins possesses. Almost all mentally strong people have been through hell. As a public figure, Goggins faces constant scrutiny, especially regarding his Navy SEAL training. He addresses the false rumors spread by a jealous SEAL Team 6 member who claims Goggins was dishonorably discharged and refused to fight. Goggins confirms he had a combat deployment in Iraq, and his limited deployments were due to heart surgeries. He refers to this jealousy as the crabs in a bucket mentality. Despite the defamation, he chose not to sue the individual, studying the evil that must have been consuming the man and refusing to take money out of his family's mouth.
They know that I was not a fan of a lot of Navy SEALs. And a lot of it is to do with the lies, some of the leadership problems, some of the character issues. And I got to see that a lot when I got out. And I'm the one to say it. I had a lot of problems myself when I was growing up. And it took a long time for me to go. So I'm not judging these people. I know where the shit comes from, man. The shit comes from shit you haven't handled. So it doesn't even bother me anymore. But when I came out in 2018, this SEAL from SEAL Team 6, it pissed Jennifer off so fucking bad. And I was cool about it. But this guy started YouTube channels saying that I was dishonorably discharged. I fucking was kicked out of the SEAL teams. I refused to fight in combat. I never went to combat. I mean, every bit of it. So the reason why in Can't Hurt Me, I have my write-up of my medal from Iraq. And I wasn't going to put that in there, but Jennifer started getting DMs from people saying, do you know, and I'm not even going to name his name. That's not who I am, dude. And I just showed you outside about that one cat.
Yeah.
I'm not going to name his name either. But I'm not going to name his name because...
How does he not know better, though? That's that was one of the things that people bring up, that you never deployed.
Right. Yep.
But why would they say that?
Why do you think, Joe? Think about it, man. Think about it. See, like this. The
But
thing
that's
about
something that's easily proven.
exactly. But guess what? This guy had black ops. Literally, he had like YouTube channels DMing people, because people, like, at this time I started getting a little bigger. I started getting a little more profile, and he was coming out of the SEAL teams. And I'm not gonna say his name because I'm not gonna try to take food out of his mouth. And this is one thing I learned from all of this. I was so fucking pissed, man. I was so fucking pissed I didn't deploy. I mean, the fucking lies were insane.
How many times did you deploy?
Twice. One to Guam and one to Iraq. And then what they don't talk about, though, is the reason I didn't deploy more is I had 2 hearts.
And finally, Goggins reveals a heartbreaking incident that fuels his commitment. A young follower bullied at school killed himself before Goggins could respond to his parents' email. Goggins now feels a massive responsibility. He is vocal because he knows many people lack the courage to speak up. He strives to be the fucking standard and biggest fucking cheerleader for those who are struggling. He argues that we change everything in our lives, our clothes, our homes, our hair, but very few of us change how we think. Goggins concludes by slamming the modern world for providing too many get-out-of-jail-free cards, which leads people to feel entitled. He asserts that nobody deserves anything, and if external help is given, the recipient will be even more miserable because they miss the necessary satisfaction of achieving it themselves. True happiness comes only from earning success through discipline, a truth Goggins embodied when he transformed himself from a fucked up and sad kid into a master of his own mind. Countdown to Global Reset. In episode 1921, Joe Rogan and Peter dive into a major global shift, aging populations, and economic collapse, focusing on China's ticking time bomb. For decades, the world's population resembled a stable column, with enough young people to support the older generations. After the Cold War, developing countries adopted this model too. But now, this is changing fast. Birth rates are plunging and people are living longer, turning that column upside down into a shrinking base with an expanding top, fewer children, and many, many more elderly.
Along.
Now, is there any possibility of regime change in China that would facilitate this in a more peaceful way?
I mean, when you got a one-man government, you're talking a popular uprising with leaders that don't exist to displace an old paranoid guy who has all the guns. That's a tall order. I don't think so.
And how strong is his control over there? I mean, how much dissent is there against Xi?
There's definitely a lot of unhappiness with the system, but because Xi has systematically removed everyone with an opinion or competence, if Xi were to die tomorrow, I don't think there is a replacement system in the wings. It's basically a system of cronies. So if you look back to what happened after Mao died, you had the Gang of Four, and you had a period of just absolute chaos until Deng Xiaoping took over. But Deng Xiaoping was part of the system. Xi is far more paranoid and far more isolated and far more consolidated than Mao ever was.
This means fewer younger adults in their 20s and 30s to buy things, and fewer middle-aged workers in their 40s and 50s to pay for retirees. For the advanced world, this wave of mass retirement was expected to hit now, and the developing world will soon follow. China, once the powerhouse of global growth, is caught in this crisis as well. Their one-child policy and rapid industrialization created a temporary population boom. But now their numbers are shrinking, and the new data showing over 100 million fewer people than previously thought.
Jesus. So, how old is Xi now?
He's also late 60s, I believe. Yeah, most of the people in the new Politburo technically aren't supposed to serve because they're too old. He waived that rule.
what is their requirement before that?
I'm not positive. I want to say it was 66.
And so he's
right at that age, I believe.
And there's no threat to his reign.
None. None within the system.
And as long as he stays alive,
Yep.
he will maintain power.
Right.
And he will be constantly surrounded by cronies. And he has insulated himself from any criticism or any bad news.
Yeah, we've been going this way for a while. So when Deng took over, he realized that one-man government was awful. So he worked out a series of secession in 10-year increments that different parts of the country, different factions would have time in government and rule. And then when they were not the ones who were making the big decisions, they'd still be in the Politburo. So we got our third generation and our fourth generation in the form of Jiang Zemin and Hu Jintao. But Deng realized when he set this system up around 1980 that he wasn't going to be there forever, and he wasn't going to be able to predict what was going to happen in the 2000s. So he told these two factions, you then have to pick a compromise candidate for who comes next. And they went with Xi because he's from the South, but his family is with the Maoists, and he had a foot in all camps. Well, Xi spent his first 5 years purging the system of all the other factions.
China also faces a skewed gender ratio, with many more men than women, which makes population recovery harder. Mao's aggressive policies aim to control population growth, but now seem to have backfired spectacularly. The economic outlook isn't better. China's education system focuses on memorization, not skills, leaving the workforce less adaptable. U.S. trade restrictions block critical technology, especially in semiconductors, slowing manufacturing. Labor costs in China have soared, making countries like Mexico more competitive with cheaper and more skilled workers. Meanwhile, Xi Jinping's government is described as paranoid and isolated, struggling to manage information effectively.
There is no one waiting in the wings, and the old factions as they once existed have basically been sledgehammered.
This is such a wild perspective on world economics and international relations.
Welcome to my world.
But do you feel isolated in that? You're the guy who's like explaining it this way?
I'm adopted. That's not new.
What led you down this road to sort of developing this comprehensive view of the future of the world?
Well, I'm adopted, so I really have always been on the outside looking in. That is definitely a part of my worldview. But my background is in economic development, so figuring out what works where and why. And once you kind of get the ideology out of it, you can look for patterns. And that took me to Stratfor, and that took me to geography. And so just kind of combining the data patterns with the American strategy for World War II and beyond, with the demographic developments that have happened because of that strategy, it leads you some pretty unavoidable conclusions. And then it's merely an issue of filling in the blanks. And most of my career now has been filling in the blanks for the last 10 years.
Do you have dissenters? Like, how much pushback do you have about these ideas? Do people think you're full of shit?
All kinds of people think I'm full of shit. I am very sector and goal agnostic in my work, which means I don't really care what your investment strategy is. If it doesn't play against demography and geography in a comprehensive way, at best you're hoping that everyone just kind of sways in your general direction. And so there's no shortage of people in a room when I'm speaking who get really upset because they have an investment thesis, or maybe they've bet their company on something that I just see as a non-issue. So obviously the folks in the crypto world have never liked me. And I dropped a video last night about how EVs are just a disaster that aren't going to be with us very much longer. And I've gotten some interesting communications because of that one. Things like this happen with me with almost every presentation. And last year I gave 179 presentations.
Zion also highlights that a potential invasion of Taiwan could speed up China's economic and geopolitical downfall. This combination of demographic challenges and geopolitical risks paints a worrying picture of China's future, with far-reaching consequences for the global economy. China depends heavily on the U.S.-controlled trade routes, leaving it vulnerable. Peter believes China has about a decade left before these demographic and economic pressures force a major collapse. This decade marks the end of an era for the global economy, driven by population growth and consumption. Post-war legacy. In episode 1852 of the Joe Rogan Experience, Sam Tripoli with Joe Rogan veers into some truly mind-bending and disturbing territory, particularly concerning the Nazis and their chilling post-World War II legacy. It's a conversation that utterly dismantles any sanitized version of history you might have learned, replaced with a stark, uncomfortable reality.
A Nazi, a Scientologist, a pedophile, and a Nazi.
You want some time?
A Satanist.
Let's try it from the
a bar.
beginning.
Okay.
Take it from the top.
A
Ready?
Nazi, a Satanist, a pedophile, and a Scientologist walk into a bar. What do?
What do they do?
Invent NASA.
The horrible story of NASA is that NASA was constructed with people from Operation Paperclip, which was Nazi scientists. Like, not just people that were working under Nazi Germany, but people actively practiced as Nazis. The Simon Wiesenthal Center, Google this, make sure it's true because I keep saying it. At one point in time, the Simon Wiesenthal Center, I believe, said that if Wernher von Braun was alive today, they would prosecute him for crimes against humanity. Because people claimed that he had hung the 5 slowest Jews in front of his rocket factory in Berlin. That's how they would encourage people to work faster.
Oh my God.
Now that part, I don't know if it's true, so we should probably find that out or edit it out. But I've said it so many times. I know I've read it. And I know I
Well, you're not
watched
pushing books by anti-Semitic, so you look good on this.
I know I watched a documentary where a guy who was a concentration camp survivor remembered seeing Wernher von Braun at the camps or at the rocket factory. But it's a fact that they use Jews as slave labor. It's a fact, right?
Yeah, and it's tragic.
And it's scary shit that they brought those people over.
One of the most jaw-dropping segments delves into Operation Paperclip, where the U.S. brought over more than 1,000 Nazi scientists after World War II. The rationale, as discussed, was a cold, calculated move to beat Stalin and maintain global pole position. My immediate visceral reaction is, how could we compromise so fundamentally on moral grounds for perceived national security? It's a horrifying trade-off, highlighting the terrifying pragmatism of geopolitics.
A Nazi, a Scientologist, a pedophile, and a Nazi.
You want some time?
A Satanist.
Let's try it from the
a bar.
beginning.
Okay.
Take it from the top.
A
Ready?
Nazi, a Satanist, a pedophile, and a Scientologist walk into a bar. What do?
What do they do?
Invent NASA.
The horrible story of NASA is that NASA was constructed with people from Operation Paperclip, which was Nazi scientists. Like, not just people that were working under Nazi Germany, but people actively practiced as Nazis. The Simon Wiesenthal Center, Google this, make sure it's true because I keep saying it. At one point in time, the Simon Wiesenthal Center, I believe, said that if Wernher von Braun was alive today, they would prosecute him for crimes against humanity. Because people claimed that he had hung the 5 slowest Jews in front of his rocket factory in Berlin. That's how they would encourage people to work faster.
Oh my God.
Now that part, I don't know if it's true, so we should probably find that out or edit it out. But I've said it so many times. I know I've read it. And I know I
Well, you're not
watched
pushing books by anti-Semitic, so you look good on this.
I know I watched a documentary where a guy who was a concentration camp survivor remembered seeing Wernher von Braun at the camps or at the rocket factory. But it's a fact that they use Jews as slave labor. It's a fact, right?
Yeah, and it's tragic.
And it's scary shit that they brought those people over, and they knew they were Nazis, and they also had those dueling scars on their face.
This is the Wiesenthal Center's
What does it say?
article about the U.S. and Nazis. And
Right.
It says, this was an interesting part.
The United States record on this issue can basically be divided into 4 periods. During the first, which lasted from the end of the war in 1945 until approximately 1948, the U.S. government played a major role in the prosecution of senior Nazi officials at the Nuremberg trials and of other criminals in additional proceedings. some of which were held in former concentration camps during the second period from 1948 until approximately 1953. The exact opposite happened. With the Cold War already underway, the U.S. lost interest in actively pursuing Nazi war criminals, preferring to build up West Germany as a bulwark against communism and therefore adopting a far more lenient attitude towards former Nazis, some of whom were enlisted as intelligence sources or rocket scientists. Their criminal Nazi past ignored. Equally appalling was the fact that during these years, U.S. immigration authorities allowed entry into the United States as refuge to thousands of the worst of Hitler's East European henchmen. It's true. That's scary shit, dude.
The Nuremberg trial.
Scroll up. Look at this. Holocaust crimes, however, could not be prosecuted in the United States as they had been committed overseas, and their victims were not Americans at the time of the crimes were committed. So instead, Nazi criminals were prosecuted for immigration and naturalization violations, that is, for concealing their wartime past. Although it appeared to be a cop-out of sorts, when announced the decision yielded relatively successful results. The good news was that it was relatively easy to win such cases compared to war crimes prosecutions. The downside was that the punishments, denaturalization and deportation, were often grotesquely incommensurate with the crimes. And does it say anything about Wernher von Braun?
I didn't get anything specifically about him.
But just Google Wernher von Braun was a Nazi. Let's see that.
Well, I mean, they would talk about for like the longest time up until almost the 80s or early 90s, like in Huntsville, you weren't allowed to talk about how he was a Nazi. You would have to be, because everyone was like convincing themselves like he didn't want to do it and stuff like that.
Think about those times, man. Think about 47, where, when they were doing all this, or 48, when they're bringing all these guys over here.
The truly sickening details that follows is the allegation that von Braun hung the 5 slowest Jews in front of his rocket factory to encourage faster work, something Annie mentioned earlier. The Simon Wiesenthal Center supposedly stated that they would prosecute him for crimes against humanity if he were alive today. This absolutely shatters the myth of scientific genius divorced from horrific atrocities, making you question every hero narrative. It's a chilling testament to how easily evil can be overlooked or integrated when deemed useful. The mention of dueling scars on many of these scientists further paints a picture of a brutal, ingrained culture. Beyond,
the United States record on this issue can basically be divided into 4 periods. During the first, which lasted from the end of the war in 1945 until approximately 1948, the U.S. government played a major role in the prosecution of senior Nazi officials at the Nuremberg trials and of other criminals in additional proceedings, some of which were held in former concentration camps during the second period from 1948 until approximately 1953. The exact opposite happened. With the Cold War already underway, the U.S. lost interest in actively pursuing Nazi war criminals, preferring to build up West Germany as a bulwark against communism and therefore adopting a far more lenient attitude towards former Nazis, some of whom were enlisted as intelligence sources or rocket scientists. Their criminal Nazi past ignored. Equally appalling was the fact that during these years, U.S. immigration authorities allowed entry into the United States as refuge to thousands of the worst of Hitler's East European henchmen. It's true. That's scary shit, dude.
The Nuremberg trial.
Scroll up. Look at this. Holocaust crimes, however, could not be prosecuted in the United States as they had been committed overseas, and their victims were not Americans at the time of the crimes were committed. So instead, Nazi criminals were prosecuted for immigration and naturalization violations, that is, for concealing their wartime past. Although it appeared to be a cop-out of sorts, when announced the decision yielded relatively successful results. The good news was that it was relatively easy to win such cases compared to war crimes prosecutions. The downside was that the punishments, denaturalization and deportation, were often grotesquely incommensurate with the crimes. And does it say anything about Wernher von Braun?
I didn't get anything specifically about him.
But just Google Wernher von Braun was a Nazi. Let's see that.
Well, I mean, they would talk about for like the longest time up until almost the 80s or early 90s, like in Huntsville, you weren't allowed to talk about how he was a Nazi. You'd have to be, because everyone was like convincing themselves like he didn't want to do it and stuff like that.
Think about those times, man. Think about 47, where, you know, when they were doing all this, or 48, when they're bringing all these guys over here. How would anybody find out? How would anybody find out that the head of NASA was a fucking Nazi? His Nazi record was not widely known until after his death. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, we did not know what he did.
Yeah.
We had no idea. Yeah. Huntsville, Alabama. Werner von Braun received an unpleasant surprise. A West German court asked him to testify in the trial of 3 former SS men from the Mittelbau-Dora concentration camp, which had supplied slave labor for the production of the V-2 ballistic missile. Von Braun had been the technical director of that project and visited the associated Mittelwerk factory a dozen times. Now the head of the center that managed the gigantic Saturn V moon rocket, he was afraid the attendant publicity would damage his reputation and that of NASA. He tried to beg off, but in the end spoke to the judge and the court at the West German consulate in New Orleans on February 7th, 1969. He denied any personal responsibility and put as much distance as he could between his, say that word, Peenemünde Rocket Development Center and the Mittelwerk Complex. Yeah, man.
It's crazy.
That's wild shit,
Crazy.
dude. The military did the same with von Braun's SS officer rank and Nazi records of more than 100 associates who had come to the U.S. with him. Wow.
Individual scientists, the conversation touches upon the broader web of Nazi connections, like IBM's strategic alliance with Nazi Germany, showing how deeply corporate interests intertwine with the regime. It wasn't just individual bad actors, it was systemic. And then there's the surreal topic of Nazis escaping to Argentina after the war, creating a giant thriving German community with Hitler parties. The revelation of former SS officers, like Erich Prebke, living openly for decades is just, well, a punch to the gut. It makes you wonder how many other horrific figures truly evaded justice and lived out their lives in comfort. This begs the question, how can a society collectively decide to just move on from such a profound evil? Octopuses and UFO Secrets. On episode 1233 of the Joe Rogan Experience, physicist Brian Cox shared his thoughts on life beyond Earth. Cox, a professor of particle physics, believes that the conditions that gave rise to the life on Earth, like hydrothermal vents and subsurface oceans, also exist elsewhere in our solar system.
History about Mars. It's interesting actually because we know something about the history of Mars now, quite a lot about the history of Mars. And it's certainly clear that there was water, almost certainly oceans, rivers. So, and that water is almost certainly still there. So I would say certainly still there.
Well, they have found large quantities of ice now, right?
Yeah, so there's certainly ice. There may even be pockets of liquid water below the surface somewhere. So couple that with all the minerals and the resources that we know are there, and you have everything you need. So that's the thing about Mars. It's quite nice relative to everywhere else other than the Earth. You can't go to Venus, right? You just melt. It's, what is it, 400 and something degrees and 90 atmospheric pressure.
Yeah.
So Mars is quite nice, but I wouldn't go there. I agree with you.
What's the gravity of Mars in relationship to the Earth?
It's what is it, about a third, I think.
Third.
Right, yeah, something like that.
So it would still have a significant weakening effect. Like if you went to Mars and then somehow or another in the future they were able to get back to Earth,
yeah,
your body would have a real problem with that, right?
It would, but there is still gravity. Maybe it's a bit more than a third. I can't quite remember, but it's something like that. But yeah, so there's still gravity. Right. So there's gravity. There's some protection from you'd probably want to live in the caves actually, or something like that. Because there's no magnetic field there, so It's quite a high radiation environment, but not too bad. It's further from the sun than we are. It's not too. There are places on Mars. There's a very deep crater called Hellas, which is a big impact basin, and at the bottom, it's so deep you could fit Everest in it, So you put Mount Everest in there, the summit of Everest wouldn't reach the rim of the crater. So it's something like, I don't know what it is, 7 miles deep or something, 6 miles deep. So you could go there, and at the bottom, the atmospheric pressure is so high that you could just about have liquid water occasionally on the floor of that crater. And
So
it's
they were
quite
gonna
warm
go.
sometimes. It can be 20 degrees.
Really?
Yeah, there, Celsius.
Wow.
So-
That's
so
better than
occasion-
Minnesota right now.
Exactly, so-
Minnesota's experiencing a serious cold front.
That's right. Yeah. So it can be warmer than Minnesota, and so there are places where it's not horrendous on Mars. So the Martian is kind of realistic in that sense.
Sort of.
Europa, Jupiter's icy moon, is a key focus. It's believed to hold twice as much water as Earth's oceans beneath its frozen crust. Thanks to tidal forces from Jupiter, this water may remain liquid and warm enough to support life. If hydrothermal vents exist there, as they do on Earth's oceans, life could potentially thrive even in the absence of sunlight. Cox also pointed out that Mars once had similar conditions billions of years ago. In both places, scientists hope to discover microbial life, which would confirm that life can arise naturally under the right circumstances. Cox believes it would be more surprising if life didn't exist elsewhere.
Are you aware of the speculation that was going around? How recent was it, that Occupy thing, the octopus eggs? There was a group of scientists that were speculating that it's panspermia, the idea of panspermia, that it's possible that octopi had come from somewhere else. Some frozen eggs had actually come from somewhere else and landed on Earth. And these were like legitimate scientists that were contemplating it, not morons.
I don't think...
Have you seen this?
No, I didn't. But I mean, I think it's unlikely. So panspermia doesn't have to be unlikely.
Right.
I mean, for example, you might have
Sure.
seen the other day we found an Earth rock on the moon.
Yes.
Right. Well, it's back
Yeah.
on Earth now because the Apollo
Right.
astronauts brought it back, didn't they? It's 4 billion years old or something like that.
One of the oldest rocks ever found.
Yeah.
Right.
So we know that material gets transferred between planets, and so it's not inconceivable that microbes could survive that journey. Right. We know that microbes can survive in space, for example. So that isn't mad. It's probably unlikely, but it's not mad. But with the octopus, I hadn't heard that. But the thing is that the octopus is still extremely similar biologically to us. I mean, the differences are negligible.
Yeah.
So it's still got the same energy system with the single ATP and DNA and all that stuff. It's all very, very similar.
It was something...
Even more bizarre is the idea that some life on Earth might not be from here. Rogan brought up the idea that octopuses could be of alien origin, a concept explored in a 2018 scientific paper titled Cause of the Cambrian Explosion, Terrestrial or Cosmic. The paper suggests that octopus's bizarre intelligence, nervous system, and ability to edit their own RNA could stem from alien genetic material arriving on comets. Though widely disputed, it reflects the growing willingness to question where life comes from and what might be influencing it.
I'm looking at a different one from a different website. It's about the same thing. It has to do with the Cambrian explosion. And there were 33 authors on a paper that got published in the Progress in Biophysics and Molecular Biology that talked about this possibility. There are other people that disagree with it, though.
Right.
I mean, I suppose I haven't seen it. So I think it's unlikely because the octopus is extremely similar to us. So that suggests a common origin to me. That I suppose the counter argument you could advance would be there's only one way to do life. So you could say that actually, given, because the laws of physics and chemistry are the same everywhere. So maybe DNA is the only way to do it. So that's the way it gets done.
Which is why they're so similar to us.
Yeah, so
although so alien as well.
Yeah, they're not though. You know, that's the thing about an octopus. That's why I'm surprised about it, because they're not that alien. They're very similar.
Well, they're in their abilities. I mean, their ability to transform their outer texture and their color almost instantaneously.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they have incredible camouflage abilities that really don't exist in the mammalian world.
Yeah, but on a cellular level, you look at an octopus cell under a microscope, and you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between an octopus cell and a human cell.
So the only way that would make sense is if all life comes from basically the same kind of building blocks and just varies depending upon the conditions and where it takes place.
I'm guessing, but yes, that must be the only way you could sustain that, given that they're so similar to us, because they really are. biochemically is that's the only way it can be done, given the building block, the toolkit, the laws of nature, and the elements and so on that we have in our universe.
We have so many different life forms on our planet, but if we found anything that's remotely similar to what we have here on Earth on another planet, it would be such an incredible discovery. Like if we found a frog on the moon, I mean, the world would stop, right?
I'd be very surprised if we found a frog on the moon.
But I mean, if we found anything anywhere that is in any way similar, insect on Mars.
Well, this is, I mean, as I say, it'd be micro. I think it'd be single-celled things. Remember, I mean, you mentioned the Cambrian explosion. So that is what we do know about Earth is that although life began, let's say, 3.8 billion years ago, it wasn't until around 600 million years ago or so, or maybe at most 700, that you see any complex multicellular organisms at all. So for something like 3 billion years, it was single-celled alone. And that's one of the reasons why I would guess, if I had to guess, I would say that microbes would be common because life began very quickly on Earth. And I wouldn't be surprised if we find it on Mars. But complex life, multicellular life, insects, plants, intelligence, I would guess would be very rare because it took so long on Earth to get.
So how do these two narratives intersect? On one side, you have scientists like Cox exploring real possibilities of life beyond Earth. On the other hand, theorists like Bravo warn that our perception of space, and even our search for aliens, might be part of a larger psychological operation. For Bravo, timing is suspicious. The Pentagon recently declassified UFO footage. Major news outlets are finally discussing unidentified aerial phenomena. But Bravo sees this shift as manipulation, not revelation. He believes it's all part of a long-standing plan to guide the public toward one inevitable conclusion, that the only way to survive an alien invasion is to unite as one, under one government.
You would have to have enough power or mass to be able to fold those two things together?
It tends to be weird stuff, like stuff that has a negative pressure or something like that. So stuff that has physical properties that are just bizarre and that no matter or energy that we know of in the universe has. So that to make the geometry happen.
But it's conceivable in theory that this could exist, even though it doesn't. It's a debate ultimately. So wormholes is a good example. So that would be quite literally, we talked about the surface of the Earth. So you fly to Australia from LA and you have to go quite a long way around the edge of the Earth. Or you could tunnel straight through and get there quicker, right? So that's a wormhole. Jamie's got a little graphic up there.
There it is. There's a wormhole. So you could go all the way around the edge, or you could take the shortcut. So the question is, so you can do that in Einstein's theory. You can write down that geometry, and there it is. So the first question is, can you make it? And as we said, we don't think that stuff exists.
Right.
There's a second set of bits of theoretical work, which are, if you had a wormhole, then what would happen if you tried to travel through it? And what seems to happen is that they become unstable the moment that anything tries to go through. So you get kind of a feedback of stuff going through and through and through and through, and so it collapses. And there's a great book by Kip Thorne, actually. We just mentioned him. He got the Nobel Prize last year for the gravitational waves, and he wrote a brilliant book, I think it's in the 80s, called Black Holes and Time Warps, where he talks about the answer is we don't fully know, but most physicists think that even if they existed, they would be unstable. And as soon as you even try to transmit information through them, send a bit of light through, then there would be this sort of feedback and they'd collapse. And ultimately, the reason we don't really know absolutely is because you need what's called a quantum theory of gravity, and we don't have one. So we don't have the theoretical tools to be absolutely sure that these things...
Whether you agree or not, Bravo's theory forces an uncomfortable question. If a global threat were announced tomorrow, would we be able to distinguish truth from manipulation? Or would we be too scared to ask? And that's what makes this theory so captivating, not just because it sounds outrageous, but because it hits on something deeply human, our fear of the unknown, our desire for safety, and the price we're willing to pay for it. Quantum computing and multiverse. In a fascinating chat with Julian Lennon, Joe Rogan explored the mind-bending world of Google's Willow quantum computer. This machine is a major breakthrough, doing things that seem impossible based on our current understanding of physics.
But the backstory to this is that Dad had said to me, and I couldn't tell you when or where, just was one of those times that we were together. He just said that, if something ever happens to me, that I'll let you know that to let you know that I'm okay, or that we're all going to be okay, will be in the form of a white feather.
Joe explained the basics of quantum computing. Unlike regular computers that use bits, either a 0 or a 1, quantum computers uses qubits. Thanks to a strange phenomenon called superposition, qubits can be both 0 and 1 at the same time. Plus, there's entanglement, where qubits instantly share information no matter how far apart they are. This allows quantum computers to perform many calculations at once, making them incredibly fast for certain complex problems. These problems include cracking codes, optimizing systems, and simulating molecules. But quantum computers are fragile, needing ultra-cold temperatures and precise setups, so you won't find one in your laptop anytime soon. The reason Joe and Julian were so intrigued is because of extraordinary claims about Google's Willow. Joe read about the chip's founder, Hartmut Neven, who suggests that Willow's performance might support the idea that we live in a multiverse, a concept where multiple parallel universes exist.
One of the things that I've talked to about with some pretty insanely brilliant people is quantum computing.
Oh, yes.
And this new Google quantum computer that can do, essentially, the way a quantum computer works, a problem that would take thousands of years for every computer on Earth to solve.
I've read that.
It can solve in a second.
Yeah.
Something that can take more years than you literally can understand. It could be solved in 15 minutes.
Yeah, I read that.
It's insane. And this is where it gets really weird. The way it was explained to me, and we should have to Google how quantum computers work and why people connect them to the multiverse, so I don't fuck this up. But the idea is that they're pulling answers from different universes simultaneously. They don't even completely understand how this is working. But the amount of power in computing is incomprehensible.
Yeah.
Like you're only looking at it and there's numbers, you could write all those numbers out, but your brain's not capable of grasping really what's going on. Yeah. And it's probably the biggest breakthrough technologically in human history by a long stretch. And it's all happening without most people even being aware of what the implications are. So see if you can Google an explanation of how quantum computers work. Was it Mark Andreessen that was explaining to us that it's pulling from different universes?
No, that
Who was that?
Being talked about in the wording of the Willow description.
Right.
But I also, just to add, when I was reading about this, they said that these benchmark numbers are coming off of Google's own data. Like they're the ones that set like the scale of what some of the quantum.
Are you skeptical? Is that what you're saying?
I'm just
no. Are you calling bullshit on Google?
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. No. I'm just a grain
of
of salt, like just to say that, like I think they used tillions is the number or something like that.
Septillion.
That no one even can grasp that.
Yeah,
that's just based, but that's a number based off of their formula too.
Right.
The idea is that Willow could be getting answers by communicating with versions of itself in other universes simultaneously. Joe found this wild, admitting even experts don't fully understand how it works, and the power is staggering. For example, Willow did a complex task called random circuit sampling in just 5 minutes. The world's fastest classical supercomputer would take 10 septillion years to do the same. That's a 10 followed by 33 zeros, far longer than the age of the universe.
Okay, Google's quantum AI founder said the performance gains lends credence to the idea that we live in a multiverse. The idea is that Willow might be communicating with parallel universes to finish calculations faster. Like, what does that mean? The announcement led Google's already high stock price to surge, which isn't that shocking, but perhaps most surprising for us lay people that Google's quantum AI founder and lead, Harmut Nevin, said that the chip's performance lends credence to the notion that quantum computation occurs in many parallel universes in line with the idea that we live in a multiverse. And then it says, excuse me? This obviously has caused a bit of a stir and it isn't exactly clear on how he made that leap. It sounds a bit like something out of a sci-fi movie, and I'm definitely not going to pretend I'm an expert, but it's worth pointing out that Google is very much still in the theoretical research phase of this journey. This is very weird stuff.
Willow has over 105 qubits that track all possibilities at once. Nevin's leap to multiverse communication blew Joe's mind. While still theoretical, this suggests we may be stepping into a future where we interact with other universes. Taliban Rule. In episode 1833, Green Beret and UFC fighter Tim Kennedy unleashes a narrative about the fall of Kabul that doesn't just feel like history, it feels like a waking nightmare you wish you could escape. He paints a horrific picture of mothers throwing their babies over barbed wire fences at Kabul airport, not in wild desperation, but in a calculated, agonizing choice, believing it would offer a better chance at survival. This isn't just a story, it's a bitter, brutal testament to the collapse of humanity, where survival becomes a prayer thrown through razor wire, and for some, the only choice left is the unthinkable.
So they are definitely doing their thing, but it was the desperation of the people trying to find a way to live. So at each of these gates, a NEO operation, it's a non-combatant evacuation operation. It's a military operation if a NEO takes place. They keep calling it a NEO, but that's if the military ran it. And if the military ran it, you would see, a special forces unit with a big, like the Ranger Regiment or 82nd Airborne that come in, that build this huge exterior perimeter, that control the ground strategically. Then it would be like the clockwork of a military operation as planes are coming in and planes are coming out, and we're building manifests, we're confirming that everybody that goes on the plane are the right people. This was not a NEO. This was run by the State Department. So instead of think a big strategic military operation, think the airport became an embassy. And like in the movies, you're running the embassy, and if you get in, you're safe, and then they'll get you out. That's how they started treating HKIA, the airport in Kabul, as an embassy. So the military just secured the perimeter of the embassy, the airport, and anybody that got on the airport was able to get out. Except the military wasn't allowed to go outside of the airport, so all the people in the city of Kabul were stuck. That's where we had to come in. So we had to go out into Kabul and grab the people and then smuggle them past the Taliban to get them onto planes. And to answer your question, that perimeter of the base where the gates, there's tens of thousands of people that were lining up here, and they maybe walked a few days. So by the time they get there, they're dehydrated. They have nothing there. There's no food. There's no water. The Taliban, if there's too many people, they'll just take a magazine and just dump it into the crowd to move them back, or to like crowd control them. They'll just dump a magazine into a crowd of people. The women, they would float babies like you're at a baseball game with a beach ball. They would float the baby towards the gate, and then hope in the hopes that a Marine or a soldier would reach down and grab the baby and bring it into safety.
What truly grates my gears is what Kennedy underscores, is the infuriating sense of strategic blindness at the highest levels. Kennedy, with over 20 deployments, states emphatically that he and all his peers fully forecasted what was going to happen as soon as the U.S. started pulling back and collapsing their ground. Every inch given up they knew the Taliban would take. They gave up strategic military bases like Kandahar and Bagram, effectively handing over the rest of the country. This wasn't some unforeseen black swan event. It was a predicted catastrophic failure. Political decisions and bureaucratic inertia can be as devastating as enemy fire. The scariest battles aren't fought with bombs. They're buried in memos disguised as strategy, signed behind closed doors. Kabul was a prime example of this.
Yeah, with 20-something deployments overseas, I've never seen anything like Afghanistan during the fall of Afghanistan. I don't know who was at a strategic level not anticipating that the Taliban, every time that we moved an inch on the ground, that the Taliban would not move an inch on the ground. So myself and all of my peers, all my colleagues, fully forecasted what was going to happen. So as soon as we started collapsing that ground, there was no doubt in any of our minds that every inch of ground that we gave up was ground that the Taliban was going to take. So when we gave up, Kandahar and Bagram, the two strategic military bases, that means that we just gave up the rest of the country. And we, having been at war there for 20 years and, multiple trips over there, we have lots of friends that deployed with us there. The Afghans have a special operations unit called the Commandos. We worked alongside them. Our interpreters are obviously from Afghanistan, so they live in Afghanistan, but they work for us. These people have security clearances. They love the idea of democracy and freedom. They love the idea of a free, independent Afghanistan. They want their daughters to be educated, and those ideals, that philosophy, does not align with the Taliban. So as Taliban start taking over Afghanistan, my phone just starts exploding from all of my friends and asking me to go, contracting companies saying, hey, I'll pay you 10 grand a day to go grab this guy. But none of it was altruistic, none.
The true heartbreak lies with the Afghans who stood with us, the commandos, the interpreters, those who embraced the idea of democracy, freedom, and the education of their daughters. Their ideals do not align with the Taliban, and for them, the collapse wasn't just a headline, it was a profound betrayal of trust and a crushing blow to their futures. While the government stalled, Kennedy found his moral compass not in official orders, but in a phone call. He recounts how Chad Robichaud, a Marine Special Operations guy, called him to help Aziz, a translator whose family was explicitly threatened and whose friends were murdered by the Taliban. This led to the formation of Save Our Allies, a non-government organization, NGO, started by Kennedy, Robichaud, co-author Nick Palmeschiano, and Sarah Verardo. It's a powerful counter-narrative to government paralysis, showing that sometimes rescue doesn't start with orders, but with urgency and conviction from veterans, spouses, and friends. In just 10 days, his ground team of 4 and 12 total in the Middle East moved an astonishing 12,000 people out of Afghanistan, accounting for 11% of everyone evacuated during that desperate period.
To fix any of that, it just seems to be like we're just going to complain about it, and it's going to be chaotic till the Chinese take over.
Don't say that. Why would you say that, Joe? Take that back. Take that back.
Well, they already got John Cena. Once they got John Cena, I was
We're
like,
already
oh my God.
The same group that obviously was in Afghanistan, Save Our Allies. Did you read about Benji Hall?
No.
So he was a journalist with Fox News that got blown up in Ukraine, and a couple of journalists that were with him died, and he was horrifically injured. Our organization, Save Our Allies, was the group that went in and found him, rescued him, saved his life, and then got him out of Ukraine and into American level medical care, and then all the way, he's currently in BAMC, like right here in San Antonio. And first, it is so cool that journalists are brave like that to go into Kabul, to go into Ukraine, to go down to the border, and to see what is really happening down there. So like little nod to them. And but that guy, no painkiller after he is very, very seriously injured. His family haven't seen the wounds, so like I'm not going to explain them. But tourniquets on for hours and he has to make it through all these checkpoints, and this is like peak invasion, and they're able to get him out of Ukraine and save his life. And like that ground team from Save Our Allies that was so creative, and how, I mean, they literally went into the front lines, grabbed this journalist, dead bodies around him, got him medical care, and then got him out of the country and before he died. And that, Benji Hall, you're a badass.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty rad.
There's a lot of badasses out there. As much as we want to talk about people that are fat and lazy and soft in this country, there is a large number of fucking incredible human beings that are here.
I'm surrounded by them. I talk about wanting America to be more healthy and fitter and stronger and individually responsible and able to secure a school, be able to protect your kids. I fully believe that we need to be better, and we're the weakest that we've ever been. But I'm like surrounded by, in the military, in my position there, I'm just surrounded by the best and most brilliant men that have ever existed. Like, these guys are so incredible. And then the guys that I work with at Sheepdog Response, their heart as servants, teaching teachers, teaching law enforcement, teaching civilians that just want to be better mothers and fathers to be able to protect themselves and their families. Like, how rad is it that they've dedicated their whole entire lives to this idea? Like, they'll teach 14-hour days, they'll come back into the office, start cleaning all the weapons, start cleaning the mats, mopping, sanitizing, to do it all again the next day. And it's so humbling to see how many great humans there are out there, and we so often just like focus at the bad, at the expense of the good never being recognized.
But the images he describes from the ground are etched into your soul. What looked like a semblance of an assembly line on television was way worse on the ground. This wasn't a standard military non-combatant evacuation operation, NEO, with clockwork precision. It was run by the State Department, treating the airport like an embassy, with the military confined to the perimeter. This meant tens of thousands of dehydrated people trapped outside, while the Taliban used brutal crowd control, literally dumping a magazine into a crowd of people. Kennedy recalls stepping over babies in water, or seeing a small body that's on fire that was burnt alive by the Taliban. He recounts seeing Taliban execute a female journalist on the hood of a car in front of his team, powerless to intervene. This isn't a war story. It's a collapse of humanity.
Break anything down. When you're running out the wire to grab a family and come back in, you don't really have time to think about what you're stepping over, but you still see it. And that's the thing that tortures my mind, is I still saw it all, but I didn't have the time to address it emotionally, think about this dead body I'm stepping over, because I'm really busy trying to get to this family. And then when I get to this family and I confirm, we had to be really judicious in how we confirmed who the people were. If I brought back one person that wasn't the right person to bring back, I would consider myself a failure in the whole.
Blitzed. In episode 2183 of the Joe Rogan Experience, Norman Ohler completely blows the lid off of what most of us thought we knew about Nazi Germany, revealing a history deeply steeped in drug use, specifically stimulants and opioids. Honestly, it's mind-boggling that his book, Blitzed, was the first to widely expose this in 2015. It just goes to show how effectively a regime can construct a facade of law and order and a pure movement while operating on a foundation of chemical dependency. My initial thought was, how did we not know this sooner?
I mean, the Nazis were really into meth, basically. They were the first ones to understand that methamphetamine can change the war effort. They basically doped their soldiers. So that was an interesting story that I told in Blitzed, and also I spoke about Hitler's consumption, which is quite outrageous, actually. And while I was doing the research, I was in many archives because I'm not a historian. I usually write novels. I started out writing 3 novels, and then suddenly I became a nonfiction writer. I was trying to understand what does that mean, and I thought it meant to do historical writing to actually go into archives and look at original documents and not just lean on other books, which is what many historians actually do, which I found out later. They just read books from colleagues and then make up their own shit. But to actually go into the archive is very time-consuming, but I thought everyone does that. Actually, no one does that. So I was looking at all the archives, and at one point I was in the archive of the memorial of the concentration camp of Dachau, so a very serious archive, because they host like all the documents, what the SS did in Dachau, and so it's an intense experience to go to that archive and actually look at, because they wrote down everything, like every experiment the Nazis did in concentration camps was like written down because it was like pseudoscience. So I found documents while I was researching Blitzed relating to tests with psychoactive substances, and that was not what I expected, because the Nazis had been, enthusiastic about methamphetamine, but that was the first time I saw like something that related Nazis and psychedelics, and I thought that's quite strange. That's quite interesting, obviously. I need to get to the bottom of this. So I asked the archivist, can I see like all the documents? What did the SS actually do with psychedelics? Which ones did they use? Why did they test them? What were they looking for? And he said, well, I'm very sorry, but all documents are in America, because when American military liberated Dachau, one of the things they do is they take a lot of documents, and they took all the psychedelic research done by the Nazis with them. So I knew I had to go to America, probably to the National Archives in College Park, close to Washington, biggest archive in the world, find it there. But I didn't have time while I was doing Blitzed, and Blitzed was also already a complete story. So I thought I saved that psychedelic theme for another book, and this other book is now being published as...
The revelation that methamphetamine, or Pervitin, was an everyday substance in Nazi Germany is genuinely unsettling. Imagine a society where you could just pick up meth at a pharmacy. No prescription needed. Even children could. It was peddled as a performance-enhancing miracle, boosting everything from work output to sexual drive. The military's adoption of it, championed by Professor Ronka, feels like something out of a dystopian novel. His chilling rationale was that meth not only kept soldiers awake, but also made them a little bit dumber, which he deemed perfect for the German soldier who merely needed to follow orders and keep shooting. That grotesque pragmatism is truly disturbing.
So the Nazis knew about mescaline, and the Nazis wanted to find a truth drug. Hitler was a paranoid person. He always thought, and it's actually true, that people are conspiring against him. There were quite a lot of assassination attempts on his life. He survived them all. But there were a lot of people who didn't like him. I mean, Germany was a totalitarian dictatorship, and most people supported Hitler, but there were also people who did not. There were people in the resistance, even within, the army, who thought he was an idiot. High-ranking officers who were a bit more brilliant than him, and who knew that he was running things to the ground. So he gave the order to find a truth drug. It's the wet dream of intelligence. You give someone a substance, and then you can control that person.
Right.
You can extract secrets from that person. You can you can control a person. And the Nazis, the SS, even with their torture methods, had been unable to extract all the secrets they wanted to extract from prisoners, especially Polish resistance fighters had been very resistant even against SS torture. They wouldn't say, I got the job from the British intelligence or what. They just wouldn't talk even when you tortured them. So Hitler wanted the drug that would solve this problem. And one man that was put in charge with this is a chemist called Richard Kuhn, who actually received the Nobel Prize for Chemistry. He was a brilliant mind, but he was a Nazi, so he didn't, like many scientists left Germany, or writers left. Thomas Mann left Germany when the Nazis took power. But some people stayed, some writers stayed, some scientists stayed, and this Kuhn actually became, he's really working for Hitler. He was developing a nerve poison, sarin, which was deadly for Hitler. And if you worked for Hitler as a scientist, obviously you got all the grants you need, the money you needed. You were, you had a great time, basically, if you sold your soul to the devil. So Richard Kuhn was in charge with finding the truth drug, and then the interesting thing is, because I was in the Novartis archive of Sandoz, because I wanted to find the link between a Swiss pharmaceutical company who develops LSD and then the SS who tests it in Dachau. Like, how did the SS know? Like, and did they really test LSD also in Dachau, or was it just mescaline? Because they write in the reports that I then found in the US, mescaline and another odorless, colorless substance was being used. And LSD is that famous odorless, colorless substance. Like, I could put a drop of LSD in your coffee, you wouldn't even notice it, which is good for intelligence service. You want to dose someone without that person knowing it. So LSD was kind of perfect. But how did the Nazis, did they actually know about LSD? Was it LSD? That was kind of what I wanted to find out. And when I was in the archive of Sandoz, I wanted to find like papers, like did they sell LSD to the SS? I was curious to find something. And the archivist, he was very skeptical of me because he sensed that I was onto something. Like, he was protecting basically the archive, because the archive at Sandoz is not a public archive. If you go to the National Archives of the United States or the Federal Archive of Germany, it's a public archive. The archivists want you to find the information. They will reveal like the find book, which like has, like, it's a database. It shows you everything that's in the archive. So it takes sometimes days or weeks to actually figure out what's all there, but you have theoretically an overview of everything that's in the archive.
But the real shocker for me is how central Pervitin was to the Blitzkrieg. The sheer scale, 35 million dosages ordered for the invasion of France, paints a terrifying picture of a drug-fueled war machine. Makes you question how much of that rapid, terrifying efficiency was strategic genius and how much was simply an army of exhausted, hyper-aggressive, meth-addled soldiers steamrolling a drowsy, wine-drinking French force. The image of Rommel, described as totally high on meth, blazing through a sleeping French village, completely shatters the myth of Aryan purity and willpower, replacing it with a far more mundane yet horrifying chemical dependency.
And their weapons were not as good. For example, their tanks were not as good as the British tanks. So it was basically, there was a lot of doubt that this madman plan by these three young revolutionary generals and Hitler supporting this madman plan would actually work. But then Ranke thought, this is my calling now, this is my hour. And he presented his findings that actually you don't need to sleep for 3 days and 3 nights. On meth, it's possible. If you give enough meth to a person, you can stay awake for 5 days. So suddenly his findings became very interesting. He was invited to the high command. He was giving lectures. He wrote a so-called stimulant decree. I don't know if you want to see that. I found that also in the archive in Freiburg. It was the first official paper by an army where the soldiers were basically invited or ordered, or it was suggested to them to take a powerful, synthetic stimulant, this is the stimulant decree. It says, for example, this was distributed to all the medical officers, so they knew, how to use the meth. So, for example, it says what you could give if someone took too much, like then you give like a sleeping pill. It also says, it's quite interesting, what are the side effects, and the side effects are aggression. So that was like a desired side effect, you know. So Ranke was suddenly very popular. He was on top of the world. There's another paper I found which shows how many dosages then the German army ordered from the Temmler company just before they attacked France, and this is 35 million dosages. So finding that document was also kind of fun. Yeah,
35 million.
Yeah.
And so were they on a large dose of this when the soldiers?
Well, it's interesting then to see how those 35 million dosages were being used, because they were used asymmetrical. They were handed out especially to the tank troops, because the tanks were at the forefront, and these tanks could not stop. So everyone in these tanks was basically high on crystal meth, like all the way through the advance. And there's reports by the French army that they simply could not understand their opponent anymore. Like, they didn't sleep. They just chased through. They behaved like madmen, basically. Rommel was seen at one point totally high on meth, like standing in the tank, like The lid was open. He was standing there, and they were racing at night through a French village where the French army had camped because they needed to sleep. Because it's kind of, I guess, funny. I don't know if funny is the right word, but France also had a sort of, not a stimulant decree, but they had the rule that in a war situation, and this had been beneficial in World War I, each French soldier has the right to drink 3/4 of a liter of red wine per day. So when France was attacked by Germany, I think it was 17,000 trucks with red wine drove from the French wine regions to the front lines and distributed the red wine. So the French guys were like drinking red wine, which is a mood enhancer, but it does make you tired, you know, especially 3/4 of a liter. So the Germans were methed up and the French were like kind of drowsy. So that scene with Rommel I described, he's standing in the open lid of the tank going through this village at night, and left and right are kind of the French soldiers kind of sleeping basically, and he just fires with the tank left and right, and he runs over people, and he's like a complete madman. And
then there's Hitler himself, whose meticulously kept medical notes by his personal physician, Theodor Morell, were a largely untouched historical gold mine. To learn that Hitler transitioned from mere vitamins to powerful opioids like Dolantine and Eucadol, oxycodone, the very same drug that later fueled America's opioid crisis, is a stunning revelation.
And Hitler was complaining of bloating problems. He always was like, he had digestion problems, and Morell, who was like an alternative doctor, gave him like vitamins and a probiotic, which was also new at the time, and Hitler was cured, and he appointed Morell as his personal physician, and they became kind of best friends. They were like, Hitler spent more time with Morell than with anyone else, all the way up to the end. So Morell's notes are very interesting to study because he was like one of these German nerds that wrote everything down. And I went to another federal archive in Germany, and I checked out all the papers of Morell, and I could see that basically no one had looked at these papers. Like, Hitler's the most examined person in the world. Like, the most literature about one person is actually about Hitler, but no one had, I mean, the last time someone checked out these notes, I could see it in the record of the archive, was like in 1986, and then someone in 1961. So I was like the fourth person to look at this. So it's kind of crazy because Morell describes like in detail like what he gives to Hitler, and that's why I'm a little bit surprised by this famous video of him. Like, I think maybe it's a fake, I don't know, because in 36, up until from 36 when they met, and Morell was with him at the Olympic Games until 41, basically Hitler only received vitamins. Vitamin C, vitamin B1, and sometimes glucose, like sugar, was injected into. Maybe he was on a sugar rush, you know, because sugar is a strong drug. Really? Because sugar immediately kicks, you know, in the brain. So, but there was no like heavy substances in 36. Not that, you know, Morell wrote everything down, so I don't think he would, you know.
The idea that the charismatic leader, the architect of unimaginable horrors, was often just a junkie speedballing cocaine and oxycodone, making very crazy decisions, completely recontextualizes his final years. The dark irony that British intelligence preferred him fucked up because his drug-induced state made him a less effective enemy is almost unbelievable. Death Zone. In 2014, a couple, Colin and Jenna, sat together in their cramped one-bedroom apartment, a single whiteboard propped up against the wall. They had no investors, no sponsors, no blueprint, just an idea so audacious it felt embarrassing to say it out loud. Colin wanted to break the world speed record for the Explorer's Grand Slam, to climb the tallest mountain on every continent and trek to both poles, all in one blistering, continuous push. He remembers that moment clearly, not just because it felt like destiny, but because it felt like delusion. He wasn't a famous mountaineer. They didn't have money or connections. And the voice in his head kept repeating the same question. Who are you to think you can do this?
There's something that happens when you realize that people can do extraordinary things that makes you believe in the potential, not just in that person, but also in yourself.
Absolutely. I mean, Goggins is a great example of that. I've never met him, but, I've personally derived inspiration from that guy. I mean, he gets out there, you can't run 100 miles. Like, I'll show you I can run 100 miles, and he's pushing his body to extreme ways. Or, I love what he says about the 40%. I think about it a little bit different in my mind, but like, what are those limits? I mean, I don't know if it's 40% or 50%. People quit, people quit.
Yeah.
That I can't voice comes up. And, he's proven it, so has many other people, of actually when you say I can, actually when you don't stop, you get stronger. And for me, in my own story, in my own journey, I think that final day, that final 32-hour push proves it. 3 days before that, I'm videotaping all this. I'm trying to capture as much content to be able to share with people of this crazy, weird place that's Antarctica by yourself. And like day 49, day 50, like I'm literally crying into my GoPro being like, I'm running out of food. I'm exhausted. I don't know if I can keep doing this. I'm just like worked, right? But sure enough, I don't say I can't. It's that it was that 40%, was that 50%. That's that moment when I wanted to quit, or I should have quit. But then the strongest, most amazing moment of my entire athletic career that spans decades happens 3 days later because I kept pushing. It's not like I rested for 3 days and pulled that off. Like I never took a rest day in 54 days. I pulled my sled 12 to 13 hours every single day. And on the last day, it was the strongest as possible. So I think it proves if we can push through that I can't moment, no, it's not going to work, that you can get there. And unfortunately, we talk about 40% with Goggins. I actually think a lot of people.
But sometimes the power of an idea isn't whether it feels realistic. It's whether you decide to treat it as real. And they did. Not in some cinematic flash of confidence, but in a quieter, more fragile way. They decided to see if they could just figure out the first step. So they started embarrassingly small, Googling the difference between marketing and PR. They emailed their only friend who'd ever done any publicity. They built a website, even though they had no clue what they were doing. In those early days, success wasn't measured in viral posts or funding. It was measured in whether they were willing to keep trying when they felt foolish.
This, like when I first set off my first world record in 2014, I sat with Jenna in my house, 1-bedroom apartment with a whiteboard, and we're like, I'm going to see if I can set the world record for the Explorers Grand Slam, something fewer than 50 people in the world have ever done, and I'm going to be the fastest. Climb Everest, climb Denali, climb Kilimanjaro, North Pole, South Pole, back to back. I hadn't climbed a bunch of mountains. It'd be pretty easy to say I can't. Oh, and by the way, we have no money to do this. We have no platform. I have like 200 Instagram followers. I have like nothing. But we just sat there and we're like, no, instead of saying I can't, let's say I can. What's the first step to that? We literally get out our laptops and I'm like we're like, we want to build this big media campaign where lots of people follow and get press. Like we know nothing about, we have no background in this. So we Google, what's the difference between marketing and PR? I mean, we are literally asking Google like the most basic of all basic questions.
Wow.
But we continue to say like, let's get coffee with our one friend who knows something about this. We should probably get a website. How does one build a website? And it goes on and on like this.
How long ago did you start this journey?
So that was 2014 when we dreamed that up. So the world record was to see if I could,
5 years ago.
Yeah, so to see if I could set the world record for something called the Explorers Grand Slam. So it's climbing tallest mountain on each of the 7 continents.
When people look back at what he accomplished, they often assume he had been training for this all his life, that he must have come out of some elite expedition pedigree. But Colin's childhood in Portland was ordinary. Family hikes, a love of the outdoors, a curiosity about what his body and mind could handle. He knew how to use crampons, but not at the scale Everest demanded. He believed in the smallest way at first, that skill and experience could be earned in motion, that he didn't have to be qualified before he began. That belief carried him into the expedition itself. 139 days of non-stop travel, no real rest, each climb compounding the exhaustion. By the time he reached Everest, his 8th and final summit, his body felt hollowed out. Still, he kept going because he understood that sometimes your commitment has to outlast your energy.
My summit push on Everest, I'm not climbing with a guide or anything. It's just myself and one Sherpa who I met climbing in Nepal the year previous when I was training for this. And so it's just the two of us, and we climb up into Camp 4. So Everest has, 4 camps. There's base camp, and then there's camps progressively higher in the mountain so you can get your body acclimatized. And we get up into Camp 4. Have you read the book Into Thin Air by John Krakauer or anything about Everest?
No.
Yeah, okay. There's a famous book that's written about it where 11 people die. And right in this moment, it's called the death zone, where you enter above 26,000 feet. The human body basically can't survive for long, even with supplemental oxygen. And this massive snowstorm and windstorm blows in like kind of out of nowhere, and we're trying to push for the summit. It takes us 2.5 hours just to set up our tent and get inside, and we know like it's over. Like we're not going to summit Everest like in this storm. There's no way. So we just survive the night, wake up the next morning, still getting pounded by this weather, and actually have to climb back down the mountain. So climb back down the mountain all the way to Camp 2, and they're like, well, that's probably it. Like you don't usually like spend a night out in the death zone and like make a second attempt, and you've already tried all these other mountains. You're 100+ days in this journey. And I was like, man, I want to see if I can get back up there. Like, and this other guy who I met on another team had some supplemental oxygen, so I had to use some of my supplemental oxygen. So my supply stores are limited now as well. And so he says to me, hey, I'm not going to go up. I'm sick. But if you get back up to Camp 4, there's a couple bottles of oxygen that you could use of mine if you somehow get back up there. So sure enough, Pasang Bodhi, that's the name of the Sherpa I was climbing with, amazing climber himself. We get back up to Camp 4 in the death zone, and we decide we're going to go for the summit. We call back down to base camp, what's the weather forecast? And they're like, well, it's the exact same forecast we told you before. It might hold, in which case you'll be fine, or it might turn into what you guys just survived. And if you're not near your tent and you're up on the summit ridge of Everest, like it's going to get like pretty bad. And so we kind of go back and forth. Should we go for it? Shouldn't we go for it? We just decide to go for it. But this crazy thing happens, which is, you may have read about this or heard of this if you know much about Everest, but basically no one climbed Everest in 2014 or 15 because a huge avalanche killed 16 Sherpas in 2014. The mountain was closed. And in 2015, there was a huge earthquake in Nepal that shut the climbing season down. So no one's even climbed the mountain in 2 years. But all of a sudden, because of these weather delays, I end up there and there's 100 people going for the summit on the exact same day. So basically traffic jam on the worst fucking place to be in a traffic jam possible. So Pasang Bodhi and I, we go, okay, let's figure out how to climb this thing. And we leave camp. There's a photo that I took for leaving camp. There's all these lights going up the side of the mountain, and it's because there's one rope that everyone works to put in, so everyone's using the same rope. And all of a sudden, we're behind 100 people. And if you stand there, wind chill minus 40 degrees, like we're gonna get frostbite, like we're gonna not be able to make it. And so Pasang Bodhi and I look at each other and we go, let's unclip from the rope. And so we actually decide to unclip from the rope, climb up all the way to the balcony from the South Call, the death zone area was.
Climbing Everest illustrates that you don't have to wait for fear to subside before taking action. Fear and purpose often exist side by side, and progress requires moving forward despite uncertainty. The moment Colin believed his hand had turned black, he felt both panic and a strange clarity that it was truly gone. He'd still have to finish the climb. This demonstrates that courage isn't the absence of fear, but the willingness to act while fear is present. Another lesson is that the difference between a setback and an ending often comes down to perspective. Most climbers who spend a night in the death zone are forced to retreat, consider it the end of their summit bid. Colin chose to view that retreat as an opportunity to regroup rather than surrender. In any ambitious pursuit, reframing disappointment as temporary creates space for a second attempt. Success rarely looks heroic up close. From the outside, people see records and triumphs, but the reality is far messier. A series of compromises, imperfect plans, and relentless improvisation. Colin's final summit push involved patching together spare oxygen, borrowing supplies, and inching up the mountain without the certainty that it would work. This reminds us that achievements are built from persistent, sometimes unglamorous problem solving.
I'm on the summit of Mount Everest, top of the world. No words can describe.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Did you experience any discomfort in your hands before?
So, we're talking about a lot of this podcast has been about mindset, which is one of my favorite topics. And like, just like we said, you could convince yourself that the salt man is fixing your foot.
Yeah.
Like, I'm on Everest. I'm at 28,000 feet. My brain's not working very well. I know that the weather's coming in bad, that people are going to get maybe frostbite based on the forecast. And I look down and I see my hand's black. Where does my mind go? It's not like, oh, let me think about this. My hand warmer must have broken open in this. I'm like, my hand, and it was weird because I was like, I didn't feel my hand getting cold. My hand feels fine, but I'm on Everest and my hand's black. That means, in my brain, I'm like, I have frostbite. So it's just like, it's a weird thing where you can take your mind, like a lot of this, the positivity of this. My mind went to the negative immediately, like, your hand's gone, it's frozen off, like the end.
Jesus. So what happened to the people that died? Were they on the rope?
Yeah, so unfortunately that day the weather actually did get pretty bad later in the day. So fortunately I was able to get down before the weather got too bad. But the people that died that day, one slipped and fell down these ropes over on Lhotse, which is the adjacent mountain, but sharing some of the same ropes on the same route. And then 2 people died from altitude sickness. So basically either running out of oxygen up there and not being able to get back down to their tent. I think those people actually did get carried back down to their tents that night and then died in the tents that night. So it's called cerebral edema, which is basically your brain fills with fluid from being at the high altitude and not getting enough oxygen, and it's a killer up there. And one of the crazy things about being up there is you read about it, but you really can't rescue somebody very easily up there. I mean, to carry a human body down to rescue them is nearly impossible. And I kind of always thought in my mind, if I saw somebody lying on the ground, like I would summon the energy to pick them up. And I was actually coming back from the summit, and I was on the south summit, so just below the Everest summit, at 28,800 feet or something like that. And this Brazilian woman who I'd met in base camp named Thais, who I've become friends with. You're in Nepal for a couple months, you start talking to people, getting friends with other climbers, whatever. And I see her lying on the ground with her head like leaned back and her oxygen mask off to the side. And I'm like, oh my God, like this is the moment that I most feared. Like somebody who I know is lying here on the side of the mountain. And I think to myself, I've got to pick her up. I've got to pick her up and somehow like carry her down this mountain. And I lean over to grab her and I try with all my might to do anything, and I realize I can't move her 6 inches. Like I'm completely exhausted. Muscles aren't working, brain's not working. So I do the only thing I can think to do is I just wrap her in my arms and I say, Thais, like if you can hear me, it's Colin. You need to get up. You need to get your oxygen mask on. You need to start moving. Like please get up, please get up. No response. She was climbing with a Sherpa, another guide right next to her. And they were like, look, like we're having trouble with her oxygen mask, but we're gonna fix it. Like it's gonna be all right. And I was like, just kind of going through this intense moment. I'm like, what do I do? How can I help? And it's this weirdest, I'm not proud of it necessarily to say it, but like there was nothing I could do.
At high altitudes, no amount of willpower can override the fundamental limits of human biology. The body begins to shut down in the death zone regardless of your mindset. This applies to other arenas too, whether it's a business operating beyond its capacity or an individual pushing past healthy limits. Ignoring real constraints isn't courage, it's recklessness. Respecting your limits is essential to sustaining progress. Every small decision compounds under pressure. On Everest, adjusting a jacket, clipping into a rope, or taking a sip of water requires focus and discipline. In demanding situations, neglecting these small tasks can lead to cascading failures. The principle is simple. Consistency in the basics sustains you when the stakes are high. Finally, the experience makes clear that the line separating success from tragedy is often razor thin. Great accomplishments don't always feel triumphant. They can feel like exhaustion or simple relief that you survived. Expecting constant inspiration or glory only sets you up for disappointment. Instead, cultivating patience and resilience becomes your most reliable competitive advantage. The story is ultimately about the quiet decisions no one sees, the ones that add up, step by imperfect step, to something that matters. When people ask Colin what the real story was, he explains it isn't about the frostbite scares, summit photos, or the record itself. Those dramatic moments are what outsiders fixate on, but they miss the deeper truth. The real story is about the quiet decisions, those countless points when everything in you was screaming to quit, when your body felt emptied out and your mind was raw, yet you still decided to take one more step.
This is what I'm worried. I'm worried that you've already done so much crazy shit that you have to push past the crazy shit you've already done. And you've already been on Everest. It sounds like you were kind of like, you weren't on death's door, but you opened the front gate.
Yeah.
You opened the front gate, you were on the lawn.
Yeah.
You were on death's lawn.
Sure.
You know? Right?
No, absolutely. I mean, like I said, the people were literally died that day. You know, it's
what
an
are you
interesting
going to try to do next? This is the question. Like, do you have some crazy shit in your head right now? You're like, okay, now I'm going to the moon with a fucking balloon.
You know, it's funny. It's twofold. It's an interesting intersection. I appreciate that you call me young. I'll take that all day long.
Well, I'm 51,
sure,
so you are young to me.
But I guess in terms of in athlete terms, right? You know,
you're in the peak.
Yeah, the peak for endurance athletes, and it's fun to be here. But I also think it's a moment in time where a little bit, I'll say, I won't give myself too much credit, but a little bit of wisdom meets also athletic performance. A moment in time where I've had enough experience, enough setbacks, ups and downs, and success, of course, with the world records and things I have, but to really take stock of what's important to me. And what I've realized more and more is I'm super curious about pushing the limits of my own potential. 100%. We've talked about that. I love.
This is the part no one sees or celebrates. The refusal to stop when every reasonable argument said you should. In the end, the record isn't just a measure of distance or altitude. It's a measure of how many times you are willing to keep going despite exhaustion, fear, or failure, and how many times you chose not to surrender to them. A different human species. In episode 2249 of the Joe Rogan Experience, Joe Rogan, Yannis Pappas, and Chris DiStefano went deep into one of the wildest paleoanthropological discoveries in recent years, the so-called Dragon Man. The ancient human species, officially named Homo longi, was identified from a remarkably preserved skull found in Harbin, China. Though the skull was unearthed back in the 1930s, it wasn't studied in detail until much later, sparking huge debate in the scientific community. The trio marveled at how Dragon Man had a mix of both ancient and modern traits, including a brain size comparable to modern humans, a thick brow ridge, and a low forehead. The skull itself was massive, leading to jokes about how someone might misinterpret skull shapes if they'd come across modern-day odd couples like Shaq and Bridget the Midget buried side by side. You'd think they were two different species, Chris quipped, setting off a round of laughter.
Did you see those, they found a new population of humans that existed as recently as, I think, 100,000 years ago. But they found them in China, and they have much larger heads.
Really?
Yeah, they found out, they thought they were Denisovans, I think, at one point in time, which also is fairly new discovery. They found Denisovans in 2010. But this is another one. This is another new species of human being that they studied, that they found, rather. And they had large heads.
Haven't they found 11 different hominids now?
There's quite a few.
Yeah.
There's quite a few, including the really controversial ones like Homo floresiensis or Floresiensis. I forgot how to
What was
say
that
it.
one? What was
Those are the
controversial
Hobbit
about
people.
them?
The island of Flores. They were little tiny 3 foot tall people.
Little squeaks.
Little twinks.
Yeah.
Late 1970s. Yeah, there it is. Homo juliensis. Fossils began belonging to 16 individuals were found in 2 different locations in China. They appeared to belong to unique species, thousands of artifacts, stone tools, and animal bones. This one is the larger-headed one. Is that the same one?
Joe then tied it all back to the larger conversation about human intelligence, noting that early hunter-gatherers actually had bigger brains than us today. You ever seen that, he asked. They think they're smarter than us in a practical way, like how to survive out in nature. Yannis agreed, adding that modern humans may dominate technologically, but ancient humans had to develop intense problem-solving skills just to eat and stay alive. This led Joe to bring up the expensive tissue hypothesis, which suggests that a diet high in meat allowed our ancestors to evolve larger brains, since energy could be redirected from gut maintenance to brain power. They also touched on Denisovans, another mysterious human species discovered only in 2010. These ancient humans lived in Asia and interbred with both Neanderthals and Homo sapiens, passing along parts of their DNA to some modern populations. But Dragon Man appears to be a distinct lineage, possibly more closely related to us than even Neanderthals.
Yeah,
that is.
Good point.
You want to talk about fumes? These kids definitely had fumes. Neanderthals? Oh my God,
what
dude.
did
The
they
scent
smell like?
must have been bad, dude.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah. Here, Jamie. I think this is a different thing. I'm going to send it to you right now. I'm going to send you the title. I just saved it on my phone so I could look at it later. 'Cause I didn't really look at it too much.
Right.
But they keep finding these new versions of humans.
Right.
So it's like, how many of them were there, and why did we succeed? Like, what was so great about?
I think we were most vicious, right? And we just
Dogs.
killed off
Has
the
to
other
be.
ones.
Dogs.
You think
Has to
dogs?
be.
Dogs.
That's the answer.
I know, dude. Yeah.
You're 100% positive.
My street smart says it. Science says it. Like it's you know, in the understanding of how, but it's pretty solid that that's what gave us the edge.
That we domesticated dogs.
We teamed up with dogs, and we had a symbiotic relationship, and we were able to protect ourselves better.
So this is it. Large head people, mysterious new form of ancient human emerges. This is it. So a provocative new piece in Nature's has proposed a whole new group of ancient humans, cousins of the Denisovans and Neanderthals that once lived alongside Homo sapiens in Eastern Asia more than 100,000 years ago. Brains of these extinct humans who probably hunted horses in small groups were much bigger than any other hominin of their time, including our own species. This is it. The large head people, yeah. So that's it. It is that name, though. Oh.
The real kicker came at the end of the conversation. Why did Homo sapiens survive while all these other human species vanished? Joe floated the idea of raw viciousness, that maybe we simply outcompeted or exterminated the others. But Giannis offered a different theory: dogs. That's the answer, he said confidently. We domesticated dogs. We had that bond. That gave us the edge. Joe agreed, pointing out how powerful a symbiotic relationship like that could have been for protection, hunting, and early community building. In short, our survival may have had as much to do with loyalty and teamwork as it did with brain size or tools. Microdosing. In episode 1035, Joe's discussion with Paul Stamets illuminated the profound and diverse roles of fungi, beginning with the Amadou mushroom's historical utility as a fire starter and in warfare, even found with the Iceman. Fungi are portrayed as ancient foundational organisms, with vast sentient mycelial networks forming Earth's natural internet, crucial for biodiversity and ecosystem health.
This mushroom is a fire starter mushroom. It allowed for the portability of fire. There's no doubt that we came from Africa. We migrated north. We discovered something new called winter. Oops. This allowed for the portability of fire. You can hollow this mushroom out, put embers of fire inside, and carry fire for days. If your clan could not rekindle fire in Europe in the wintertime, you would die. So this hat's actually made by some ladies in Transylvania.
Can I feel that?
Yeah, and it's a hardwood conch.
Oh, wow.
Their intelligence is exemplified by a slime mold mapping the Tokyo subway more efficiently than its human design. Fungi also serves as architects of our existence, creating habitats and influencing ecosystems, sharing deep revolutionary ties with animals. Psilocybin mushrooms were explored as potential drivers of human evolution, with the Stone Age hypothesis suggesting their role in the rapid doubling of the human brain, language development, and fostering leadership traits like courage and empathy through neurogenesis and fear response extinction. Clinical studies from Johns Hopkins demonstrate psilocybin's therapeutic potential for end-of-life depression, PTSD, and addiction, showing significant societal benefits, including an 18 to 27% reduction in criminal activity among former inmates. A personal account detailed psilocybin's role in curing a congenital stutter.
In the animal kingdom that we haven't discovered?
Well, that stimulates my thought into talking about the microbiome. The mycelial landscapes networks, they don't live by themselves. They select a microbiome of bacteria and other organisms that rest upon the mantle. These fungal networks are the foundation of the food web. Well, similarly, we have a microbiome. And it's really interesting that the many of the bacterial diseases that infect fungi also infect us. Our best antibiotics against bacteria come from fungi, penicillin being the obvious example. But we have found now doing next-gen sequencing, and this has never been published before, that the mycelial mats growing in the very same wood chips, in our case, that have been fermented, we had a 1,000-fold difference in the relative abundance of genera of bacteria from the very same wood chips, 2 different mushroom species planted on those wood chips, and the microbiomes that were created and selected for by the mycelium were vastly different. This really strongly supports the concept, this is a hypothesis with quickly becoming a theory, I'll explain the difference in a minute. But this really supports the concept that I've long believed and espoused, that these mycelial networks are not just happenstance. They're creating the habitats and the flora and then ultimately the fauna that are resident within the ecosystem to guarantee the plurality and the biodiversity of the ecosystem by creating the plants that grow up, that feed the animals, the insects to create the debris fields, and then feed the mycelium for the benefit of the progeny of the mushrooms that will form thereafter. So these are deterministic organisms that are setting the stage for ecological evolution.
And you think that they're doing this in a conscious manner?
Well, see, again, we're a victim of our consciousness trying to define what is conscious and what is smart. And one of the best arguments I've had, my brother Bill is a super genius, is far smarter than myself. And he was editing one of my books, Mycelium Running, How Mushrooms Can Help Save the World. And he goes, Paul, you cannot say that mycelium is intelligent. And then he says, you can't say nature is intelligent. I go, wait, Bill, I respect you. But you didn't realize the hypocrisy of the statement that you're giving me? You're telling me nature is not intelligent, and yet you are born of nature, using the mind to conceive the concept, to challenge the idea that nature is not intelligent when you are part of nature?
Beyond psilocybin, other medicinal mushrooms were highlighted. Lion's mane shows neurogenic properties, promising for cognitive function and potentially preventing Alzheimer's by regenerating myelin and resolving amyloid plaques. A major breakthrough involved mushroom extracts, particularly from amadou, doubling bees' lifespans and drastically reducing deformed wing virus, offering a solution to colony collapse disorder.
No, I absolutely agree with you that conventional treatments are state-of-the-art, and this is state-of-the-art science. When you're talking about dealing with cancer, you should deal with oncologists that are at the cutting edge. But they're not state-of-the-art when it comes to the preventing of these things. And that's a giant issue that a lot of people have when it comes to nutrition, lifestyle, mitigating stress, all the various factors that contribute to a bunch of different health ailments. Do you think that mushrooms could also play a factor in that as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a great epidemiological study that came out of Japan, and Dr. Ikikawa was an epidemiologist that worked for the National Cancer Center in Tokyo. And they noticed in surveying people in Japan in the 1960s, early 1970s, there was a drop in the overall cancer rate in this one population in Nagano Prefecture in Japan. So he was sent there by the National Cancer Center of Tokyo, by the government, to say, what are these people doing in this one cluster of villages where they have statistically significant less cancer rates? We're talking about 30% less than the national average. And after exhaustive study, he found that they were eating enoki mushrooms, a lot of them, because the enoki mushrooms are really thin ones, like really tall stems. You can buy them in the store. Well, there's big farming centers for enoki mushrooms there, and then the blemished ones, as us cultivators know, you don't sell to the public the ones that have little spots on them or deformed, but they're given to the workers, and so their workers and then their families eat a higher per capita consumption of enoki mushrooms than the other residents of Japan. So they found that specifically, the consumption of enoki mushrooms resulted in a reduction of cancer across the board, of all cancers, statistically significant. I think over 220,000 people.
Agarikon, an ancient polypore, exhibited potential antiviral activity against flu, herpes, poxvirus, including smallpox, and HPV, underscoring the vital need to preserve old-growth forests for their fungal genomic resources. UFO Encounters. On episode 1883 of the Joe Rogan Experience, Joe Rogan hosted former Navy F-18 pilot Ryan Graves to discuss an extraordinary topic: unidentified flying objects, or UFOs. Graves, who holds a degree in mechanical and aerospace engineering, served both operationally and as an instructor pilot. With years of experience flying in U.S. airspace and exposure to high-grade military technology, his first-hand encounters with unidentified aerial phenomena carry notable credibility.
Sure. So, my name is Ryan Graves. I have an engineering degree, mechanical and aerospace engineering. I promptly left doing that to go fly F-18s for the Navy as soon as I graduated college. Did that for about a decade, both operationally in combat as well as in an instructor role, teaching the new students. And, we did witness something while we were flying in our jets, but, we were doing it we witnessed it in the context of our just everyday flying in our missions.
And what year was it that you witnessed this?
So we started seeing these in 2014 was the earliest that I know. 2013, late 2013, early 2014.
During the conversation, Graves described how his squadron began picking up unknown objects during flights off the east coast of the United States. These weren't simple radar glitches. The contacts were consistent, visible across upgraded radar systems, and confirmed through camera systems like FLIR, which detects infrared heat signatures and visuals. Even more startling, these objects were often seen meandering across the sky in erratic patterns or hovering motionless against wind speeds of over 100 knots, a feat that defies known aerodynamics.
If we see this essentially little circle, it'll have a tail coming off of it. And that tail kind of represents the nose of the vehicle, at least as its flight path is going. And so with that, we would typically see an aircraft just kind of trudging along with a straight line, taking occasional turns. But these objects had a little bit more of a, I don't want to say random, but more less controlled flight path. That velocity vector would kind of jump around a bit more. They would not proceed in like a perfectly straight line as you would imagine like a flight navigation computer would take you, right? It takes you from A to B in the straightest line possible. These objects seem to kind of be moving in a direction that was not a straight line, but generally proceeding in that direction. And so they would kind of be meandering slightly, but moving in that general direction, both three-dimensionally and horizontally.
So winding around, going up, going down. Mm-hmm. So they're not on a flat plane, and they're not going in a straight line.
So I don't want to draw too many firm statements like that, because we would see them being flat, too. We'd see them perfectly stationary up there, regardless of the wind.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Wow. So what kind of wind are you talking about?
Oh, gosh. I mean, at altitude, you can have anywhere up to 100, 120 knots of airspeed.
What is that in miles per hour?
It's about 130, 140 miles an hour.
So they're completely stationary with 140 mile an hour wind?
Correct.
How would something do that?
It's confusing to me as well. Even if we had something that could just burn that much energy, right? Like if you had a sphere surrounded by little rockets, right? Just imagining something right now.
Okay.
And if you wanted to keep that perfectly stationary, right, against gravity, you could just fire all the rockets at the bottom really fast and hopefully keep it flat, right?
Right.
It's going to have tiny little variations. And then if you have wind hitting it and all this, you could potentially have those rockets try to counter it, but it would never be perfectly still in winds like.
Graves' testimony reveals something far more urgent than sensational UFO talk. It exposes a serious operational blind spot in U.S. air defense. We're not talking about tinfoil hats or conspiracy theories here. These were trained military pilots encountering unidentified craft in restricted airspace day after day, with no identification, no transponders, and zero response from air traffic control or the military chain of command. And that's a problem, a big one. When Graves explains that these objects flew racetrack patterns, typical for surveillance missions, it suggests intention, not randomness, not malfunction. That alone should have triggered higher-level investigations, but it didn't. And that's where things feel almost surreal. We're dealing with craft that behave like intelligence-gathering tools, hovering, tracking, maneuvering with unnatural precision, and yet they're met with silence. What really stands out is how the military initially leaned toward sensor malfunction until FLIR visuals confirmed what the radar saw: actual physical objects emitting heat or energy, hovering midair like they were unaffected by the elements. And that's where I think that the average person underestimates just how serious this is. These aren't optical illusions. We have multiple systems corroborating these events: radar, infrared, and human visual confirmation. Personally, I think the most chilling part isn't what the objects are. It's the institutional indifference to them. The most advanced military on Earth, with a $900 billion defense budget, encounters daily incursions in protected airspace and just keeps flying. That tells me two things. Either they know exactly what it is and aren't saying, or they don't know, and that's even scarier.
So somewhere in the range of an airplane.
Yeah, a fighter aircraft would be kind of flying around at those airspeeds, except sometimes they would be perfectly stationary as well.
Right. So it's not exhibiting any sort of patterns that you've recognized in the past.
No, they have actually. So,
although but with the stationary, no, right?
Correct. With the stationary, no. With the meandering kind of flight path, no. But I would also see them essentially fly what we call a racetrack pattern. And essentially what that means is they fly in a straight path, and then they do like a 180-degree turn in a certain direction, then they fly a straight path, then turn again. You know, so that's what we call a racetrack pattern as opposed to a circular holding pattern. We did witness racetrack patterns. In fact, I think there's been some cases off the West Coast just the past couple of weeks where people have also been observing objects flying in racetrack patterns high at altitude with lights. So I do recognize that behavior, but I don't necessarily think that means we have to attribute it to normal behavior necessarily.
Interestingly, similar cube-shaped UFOs have been sighted elsewhere, from El Paso, Texas, to Missouri and Colorado. Civilians have reported and recorded sightings of similar floating cubes, some glowing, some silent, and some accompanied by humming sounds. These recurring appearances have sparked theories about the shape's purpose. A cube, Graves speculated, could be structurally efficient for housing tech or maintaining propulsion systems. It might even be ideal for stacking or docking, like modular spacecraft.
So that happened when we visually saw one. And the first time we visually saw one, the object was directly at what we call the entry point of the area. So, you know, that box that I told you about in the sky that starts 10 miles off the coast, there's a particular GPS, location and altitude where incoming traffic will fly in, and outbound traffic will fly in the exact same spot, but will fly out 1,000 feet lower. There were 2 aircraft from my squadron, VFA 11, and they flew, took off as a flight of 2. That means they're essentially flying in a formation like this. And as they hit the area, one of these objects went right between the aircraft. The lead air crew saw the object. The Dash 2 aircraft crew did not, which is not surprising because they're usually, you're very focused on flying formation. You're just staring right at that aircraft. The lead really has actual leeway to look around. So he saw it, and, he immediately came back. I have to assume he didn't have it on his radar because he wouldn't have flown through this object at the entrance point. He turned around, flew back, landed, and I was in the ready room when he come back, and he had all his gear on, which typically is not a good thing because you want to get that stuff off as fast as possible. So usually means there's a problem of some nature, and he was just sitting there saying, "Hey, I almost hit one of those damn things." And we all knew what he was referring to, even though we didn't necessarily have a name for it, just because we were seeing these so much. And he described it. He described it just as a black or dark gray cube, and that cube was inside of a clear or translucent sphere. And essentially the apex or the corners of that cube, best he could tell, were touching that inside of that sphere.
Grave isn't a conspiracy theorist. He's a credible former Navy pilot, raising alarm bells that too few people seem willing to hear. And the fact that we've normalized unidentified craft in defense-sensitive airspace, that's not just negligent, it's terrifying. Humanity's ticking time bomb. Turning to different existential threats, Joe had a discussion with Michael Malice in episode 1952 about the potential for humanity to face extinction due to natural disasters, specifically focusing on super volcanic eruptions. Joe Rogan didn't hold back when discussing the terrifying reality of supervolcanoes. On his podcast, he explained that it's not just the eruption itself we should fear, it's everything that follows.
The reality of human life is that we're subject to a host of uncontrollable natural disasters that are imminent.
Yes.
They're going to happen.
Yes.
Yellowstone's going to blow. We're going to get hit by an asteroid, and we might nuke ourselves too.
Like
all that stuff is real too. So that's all on the table. And also, I've talked to enough people that are they're really educated in the history of ancient cultures and ancient civilizations, and the evidence of natural disasters wiping people out and people having to start from scratch. It seems It seems like we're a part of like this giant never-ending cycle of getting knocked back into the Stone Age and then rebuilding to a new version of complex society. I think we're on a version of that now, but I think there's been many versions of that. Yeah. And I think that that's also on the table for us.
But I think it'd be a lot easier for us to bounce back than someone 2,000 years ago with our technology and our ability to... No?
No, not at all. Not at all. Because when it hits, first of all, very few people survive and everything goes to shit. There's no electricity, no generators work, there's no one pumping oil, no one knows how to make a generator, no one knows how to make a cell phone, so all that technology is lost.
Well, the Jim Baker people do. Wait, so what would this be? Like a meteor? Other than a meteor hitting the Earth, what would cause this?
Super volcano would kill almost all of us. The Yellowstone super volcano, it's a caldera volcano. Like they didn't realize that it was so big until somewhere in like the 2000s, I think it was, they did satellite imagery and they realized, oh my God, that's the caldera of a volcano, like this Yellowstone thing. We thought it was just this crazy place with hot springs. Like, no, that's a super volcano that is a continent killer. And it blows every 600,000 to 800,000 years and everyone dies. Like the whole fucking country.
If Yellowstone explodes, entire regions of the U.S. would be buried in ash. And that's just the start. Ash would rise into the atmosphere, spread around the globe, and block out the sun. That means no sunlight, no crops, and a sharp drop in global temperatures. It's an extinction-level event, Joe warned. Michael Malice suggests that maybe people in bunkers could survive, but Joe was skeptical. Modern life depends on fragile systems. Generators need fuel, but what happens when no one's around to pump oil? Even solar power wouldn't work well under an ash-covered sky. You're not just surviving the blast, Joe said. You're surviving the collapse of everything. He pointed out how overconfident society has become. We focus on problems we can see, like pollution or politics, while ignoring the ones we can't control, like a volcano wiping out civilization. These events have happened before. Joe mentioned the Toba eruption in Indonesia, which may have reduced the global human population to a few thousand.
Gonna happen. And they create fucking islands in the middle of the ocean. That's what Hawaii is.
Yeah.
It's a fucking volcano that's sprung out of the ocean. And now you go vacation there and put fucking suntan lotion on, sit out there and have margaritas. You're on a volcano.
The scary part, these disasters don't follow human timelines. The Yellowstone volcano last erupted 640,000 years ago. And eruptions seem to occur every 600,000 to 800,000 years. So by that pattern, we're due. Joe reminded listeners that 100 years might feel like forever to us, but to the Earth, it's nothing.
And it happens every 600,000 to 800,000 years, and the last time it happened was like 600,000 years
see, that's another reason Texas should be its own country.
Well, we'll get hit. We'll get hit. We're all gonna die. If that happens, we're fucked. Like maybe people in New Zealand will live, and those folks would be the new people. You know, it's happened before. Was it the Toba? Was that what it was? Yeah, in Indonesia. There was a Toba volcano in Indonesia 70,000 years ago. They think knocked the human race down to a few thousand people.
Holy shit! Really?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. These things happen, man, and they happen with regularity. In terms of if you look at the timeline of the Earth, they happen all the time. It's just when. Is it going to happen now, or is it going to happen 1,000 years from now when we have enough technology to mitigate its effects in some way? But when it happens, you get nuclear winter. Everything dies. No crops. Nothing. The sun doesn't get through. The skies are filled with ash.
You can't live
no food.
You can't really live your life with concern about something like that happening.
I'm not living my life with concern. I'm saying that's also on the table.
Sure.
So that's why I'm gray.
Okay.
Get it? Because I'm like, yeah, this. Hopefully it's going to be great, but maybe not. And for all of us, the end is going to suck.
For Joe, the message was clear. Humanity is fragile. We may have smartphones and skyscrapers, but they won't save us if the ground beneath us decides to blow. We're ants playing with fire, he said, and one day, nature could strike back. The end of America? Transitioning from the cosmic to the societal, Joe Rogan and Tim Dillon had a pretty dark but also hilarious discussion about the potential fall of America. Joe started by thinking about the fall of the Roman and Greek empires and wondered if the same thing could happen here. He figures the people of Rome probably felt their empire was permanent, just like many Americans feel today.
just pull out some guy who's not supposed to be here.
Just a cashier at HEB, someone from MS-13.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Get him in. Someone from Tren de Agua and Lauren Sanchez and Gail King and, you know.
Oh, you see they released the footage, dash cam footage or police footage of the guy who they're saying was just a father.
The Maryland father.
Yeah, as he got pulled over with 8 undocumented people in his truck. They were all supposedly staying at his house.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
Yeah, the wife had a restraining order against him, a protection order.
I saw that there was a restraining order. I saw that he was hanging out with 2 guys that were in MS-13.
Yeah, they released the. Yeah, he's definitely sketchy.
They have made a few
mistakes.
mistakes.
Not this Maryland father.
No.
The guy that scares me is the hairdresser.
The gay hairstylist?
Yeah. I want
or
to know
there's
what's
a guy
going
with
on
a
with that.
tattoo. And his
That's him. The hairdresser has
the
a mom
autism.
and dad. Oh, no.
Oh, no. There was a guy with an autism awareness tattoo, and they thought it was like an MS-13 tattoo, but it doesn't look like an MS-13 tattoo. It's a literal...
The problem is everybody's a liar.
You don't know.
So the liberals are liars and the Republicans are liars.
Everyone's lying.
They're all lying. And if they did ship some
Ironically, the only people I trust are MS-13.
And
because they'll tell you.
And podcasters.
Podcasters and MS-13.
That's all I trust.
I would love if you just had MS-13 on. Just 3 guys with tattoos. Because, by the way, there would be no outrage. That's what's hilarious.
Right.
If you had 3 MS-13 gang members, not one person would go, why did he have that?
Why did he
on?
platform them?
Nobody would.
But if I have Ian Carroll on.
If you have anyone else on, it'll be a horrible thing. But if it was 3 guys, MS-13 with head-to-toe tattoos, who admitted to killing multiple people, and you said, now tell me about what it's like to grow up in San Pedro Sula or whatever, and it would be okay.
Tim Dillon's take is bleakly funny. He thinks America will come apart, and it'll be in one of the funniest, most absurd ways possible. He sees everyone, including himself, as just trying to get theirs, like grifters circling a dying empire. This self-serving mindset could lead to totalitarianism. Joe asked Tim if he thought we're heading towards a CCP-style totalitarian government. Tim thinks it'll be more chaotic first. He envisioned giant swings between political extremes, with parts of the country becoming unlivable due to crime, homelessness, or climate issues. Well-off or well-connected people will retreat to enclaves, which he noted is already happening. Eventually, this chaos paves the way for a dictator or strongman to arise, promising to fix the broken system. This new leader, however, likely won't act in the best interest of the people.
Yeah, I mean, you need Sergeant Slaughter from the old WWF. I mean, you need a fully fascist. You need a guy to run as a fascist. When they go, "Are you a Republican?" He goes, "No. I am a fascist. This is a military dictatorship. You need 4 years of a military dictatorship in California to just turn it around, to just start steering it the other way."
Well, it's moving red. That's one thing that you saw by the electoral map from 2024. California is moving red.
It's going red.
Yeah,
there's only
but
so many
surely.
times you can wake up in a $4 million house with a gun in your mouth before you start thinking differently about it. You know,
see, they were trying to pass laws where they're deciding how much violence is enough violence if someone breaks in your house. Like, you shoot them too many times,
right?
You know,
No,
in the middle of being terrified, you're like,
absolutely. They will always take the side of the people that are trying to destroy civilization.
Do you think that when you don your tinfoil hat and Velcro the chin strap, do you think that this is a grand plan to destroy civilization?
I think what you have, I don't know if it's a grand plan, but I think what you have is you have 2 things that are happening simultaneously.
Tim describes how the masses could be controlled. They'll be kept distracted by entertainment, consumerism, and simple goodies. Imagine, he says, a leader telling people elections don't matter and offering a coupon for a chicken sandwich instead. People just might say fuck it and go along. You'll have Netflix and Domino's, maybe told you can't drive because of climate rules, and you'll just accept it. They'll feed you propaganda, and most people will be pacified by the goodies and won't even remember when they were free. Joe and Tim fear that this generation might be the last to truly experience freedom. The kind of freedom where you weren't constantly tracked, where you could say what you wanted without it being recorded forever on the internet.
The last people that seem to want to be in politics are people that believe in like nothing. They're like empty suit, Gavin Newsom types who just really don't seem, they just, whatever room they're in.
Wait a minute, have you seen his podcast?
Yeah, well, that proves my point. That proves my point now, right?
He's a believer.
So now he's like, oh, things are going right, I'll go to the right. Things are going to the left, I'll go to the left. So you have like these people that just don't, they will not, like Sanders or Trump, whatever you think about them, they're not going to like, quote, stand on business. They're not going to tell people, here's where I'm at. This is the way I feel. They're just empty vessels. And then at the same time you have that happening, you have the craziest people in the world that somehow have gotten hold of a ton of money and a ton of influence on social media. And those empty suit politicians are like scared of these lunatics that believe the craziest things you've ever heard. So these politicians are just like taking edicts from these crazy people online who tell them that we need the stabbing wagon and we need all this stuff. Yeah. I don't know how that happened. That somebody should look at that, how that happened and study it. And I think it's a lot of these politicians are deeply corrupt, and I think they're terribly afraid of whatever corruption they're involved with coming to the surface. And it could be personal in their personal life. It could be with the state. I think, the mismanagement of money, of resources, all of that stuff. So if I was a really corrupt politician, I would just do the craziest left-wing shit so that I could never be accused of anything.
Good move.
And I would just let them do whatever the hell they want. I go, yeah, well, fucking whatever. What? We got a new law that says they got to draw blood in your house from you before you can defend yourself.
Tim painted a picture of a future hellscape that's so controlled, people born into it won't even realize they're not free. They'll be satisfied with small comforts, like finding their favorite creamer. The books about freedom might be burned, and society will be built on addiction to celebrity, with leaders who are famous faces telling you on TV how good things are, and you'll just agree. It sounds like a dystopian horror movie, but Tim delivers it with a dark comedic edge. Time travel. Finally, a topic everyone often talks about. Joe Rogan and Bert Kreischer explore Terence McKenna's theory of time travel, a theory that flips the Hollywood version on its head. In episode 1821 of the Joe Rogan Experience, McKenna suggests that time travel isn't about visiting the distant past or changing history. Instead, it can only begin once a time machine is created. In other words, if the first time machine is invented in June 2022, you can't travel back to April 2022. You can only travel forward or to points beyond June. The machine becomes the starting line for all time travel.
Yeah, so everything is multiverse now. It's really interesting because what it does is, as a tool, as a writer, and as a tool for the people that are creating the film, it allows you to, there's no timeline is locked in. You can do whatever you want. You could have people come from other dimensions. You could enter into the dimensions. You go back and forth. You could just, you're not locked into, 2022, living in America. This is where it's going down. The aliens have landed. No, you go back and forth in time. You disappear. You come back. You have other Doctor Stranges come from other dimensions.
Oh, wow. I like the multiverse.
It's pretty dope.
It's crazy. Have you seen that new movie, Everything Everywhere All at Once?
No, but I keep hearing amazing things about it.
Yeah, we just saw it this past
Did you go to the movie theater?
Weekend, yeah.
Look at you, like a regular person.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah.
How was it? Tell me what it's a multiverse kind of movie,
it's
right?
like that. There's she ends up figuring out how to switch into her different lives and like take different times, different lives that she's lived throughout all of time.
Wait, what the
and
fuck?
Fast forward and rewind and use these things to her advantage and try to accomplish things. It's crazy.
Oh, I love time travel.
Yeah, it's wild.
This idea sparks a deeper discussion on the implications. If time travel becomes possible and widely accessible, Joe and Bert speculate the time itself could lose meaning. Events might unfold simultaneously, and with advanced technology, we could effectively become immortal, jumping to futures where medicine, consciousness, or even physical form have evolved to godlike levels. But here's the catch. What happens to originality and invention in a world where anyone can leap through time? If someone travels to the future, grabs a new idea, and brings it back to the present, how can we ever determine who invented what? Joe points out that in such a world, intellectual property could collapse entirely. There'd be no clear beginning to any innovation.
What he was saying, you can't travel where there are no roads. So once a road gets built, then you can travel. So once a time machine gets invented, then anyone from the invention of the time machine forward to forever can come back to that moment and can go to any point in time from that moment to the end of time. So all time ceases to be linear. So there's no like tomorrow will be Wednesday and the next day will be Thursday. No. It's everything happens everywhere all at once. So people can travel back and forth through time. You can never own anything because someone could just travel through time and take it away from you when you weren't looking. Like as time travel gets more and more sophisticated, you can go back and forth in time while you're talking to people. You know, if you don't like what you said, you could rewind and start all over again. If you're in an argument with your wife, you can go to the library and get information and come back and go, actually, you know, Herodotus once said, and then bam, your wife thinks you're the smartest guy in the world. Like this, but there would be no normal life anymore. It would the world itself would be completely unrecognizable because time would mean nothing. You'd be able to travel back and forth through time.
All right, so then where would you go right now? Just if I could do, we can time travel right now, go back in the
past.
In the past. Well, what's one thing you'd like to see again?
See, that would be a different kind of time travel. That's an unrealistic theatrical version of time travel because, like you said, once time is invented, once time travel is invented, that's the time you can start traveling. So you can't
go before that.
Right.
Okay.
So like here we are, it's May of 2022. If time travel is invented in June, we're not going back to April. You can't go back to April.
Okay.
But you can go from June to a million years in the future and see what people look like. You'll be able to do that. But they'll be able to come back too, and everything's going to be happening everywhere all at once. There's not going to be any sort of structure to life. There's not going to be anything in terms of money, possessions. As long as you could freely time travel, there will be no time. Everything's going to be moving around, and also instantaneously you'll become immortal. Because whatever we have right now in terms of technology, what we're going to have in a million years is going to be godlike. And you're going to be able to travel to that, if in fact that actually does even take place. Because the question becomes, what is the future if time travel does exist? So if time travel exists in June of 2022, is there even a future? Does it even take place? Because how can anybody invent things when they can just travel to a point where someone invented it already? But how are they going to invent it already if you can just travel to the future? And do they invent things still? Or do people, if they do invent things, what's to stop people from going back before them and taking the idea and introducing it before that? Thus, there'll be no intellectual property.
Joe then brings up Roland Millett, a professor from the University of Connecticut, who has spent his life trying to build a time machine. Motivated by the tragic death of his father, Millett created a theoretical model for a working device. However, it requires a staggering amount of energy, something on the level of the sun's output, making it nearly impossible to power with current technology. Even more heartbreaking, Millett understands that McKenna's theory makes his mission impossible. No matter how powerful the machine, he can't travel back to a time before it existed, meaning he can never reach his father.
Think about that.
Is there someone working on time machines right now? There's got to be, right?
Well, there's a guy named Ronald Millett. I think he's out of the University of Connecticut, if you Google this. And he's got the craziest Spider-Man character origin story. His father died, and he became obsessed with time travel because he wanted to go back in time and save his father. So he became a professor studying time travel, and he came up with a workable model of a time machine, but it requires immense power. That's him. Ron Millett built a device that illustrates the principles he believes could be used to build a time machine. But he was one of the people that came up with one of the first people to come up with the realization or the revelation that once that time machine was invented,
his dad died in
from
Vietnam.
then, yeah. But it is really like a comic book superhero sort of origin story, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's a great origin story.
Yeah. So this guy has become obsessed and has been working.
To close out the segment, Joe recalls Kurt Gödel, the early 20th century mathematician who developed a solution to Einstein's relativity equations. Gödel's model includes a rotating universe that theoretically allowed time travel, but it required a machine as large as the solar system. Altogether, the conversation blends scientific theory, personal stories, and speculative philosophy to explore the complex challenges and mind-bending consequences of time travel. The Cloward-Piven Conspiracy. What does anyone know about the Cloward-Piven strategy and its possible use by governments today to push toward a Great Reset? The Cloward-Piven strategy, originally proposed in 1966 by sociologists Richard Cloward and Francis Fox Piven, involves overwhelming social systems like welfare and border enforcement to trigger systemic collapse. This crisis then forces the implementation of new policies.
Throwing out sources, but there's this book I read. It's called The Critical Turn in Education. It was published by a Marxist at Iowa State University named Isaac Gottesman in 2016, 15, one or the other. And right from the beginning, one of the things he's explaining is that people with their ideology of education, which is called critical pedagogy, actually had captured our schools of education virtually entirely by 1992. That's the date the Marxists themselves say, this is when we got the schools of education. So I try to explain this in this documentary that I've got coming out in May called Beneath Sheep's Clothing, and it's very simple. If you get the colleges of education, then you're going to get the teachers. And if you get the teachers, then you get the kids. And if you get the kids in a generational strategy, you get the future. And that was, they own the schools. Like, they own the manufacturing plant where we build teachers and administrators. They're called colleges of education. They have a virtual monopoly on producing them. And they have said in their own words that their ideology has run the schools since 1992. That's, if we're keeping track on our fingers, 32 years ago.
Well, this is what Yuri Bezmenov talked about
exactly.
in the 80s. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why it's like I say what I just said, and then Yuri in the trailer to that film, which is at the top of my Twitter, if anybody wants to see it.
Let's see it.
We go back and forth. Yeah, it's like right at the top after
Let's see the trailer.
Cool book.
When does this come out?
End of May.
Most people are blissfully unaware that all this is going on.
That's why I'm writing books and making movies where I could be going out and enjoying my life.
Yeah.
Like, I do like traveling around. I like getting to meet people. I've got one of my, I don't know if you know who Tiffany Justice is with Moms for Liberty.
No, well, yeah.
But she says all the time, who knew we were going to make so many cool friends in our 40s?
Right.
Lindsay explains how this tactic is reportedly being used by the Biden administration, George Soros's Open Society Foundations, and the United Nations, pointing to the ongoing border crisis as a deliberate example of overwhelming government resources. The conversation warns that such crises paves the way for drastic policy changes, such as implementing a global digital verification system, which could monitor and control populations, much like China's social credit system. Lindsay cautions that this worldwide verification system could threaten personal freedom, autonomy, and privacy. Rogan echoes concerns about the erosion of true freedom, emphasizing the importance of respecting private actions that do not harm others, distinguishing clearly between public and private life and adult versus child interactions.
It's very bizarre that they would choose to demonetize something that's someone's legitimate opinion about a very worrisome trend.
I mean,
this is something that people should discuss. And to be able to discuss these things, especially in this wonderful world of open communication that we find ourselves in, you should be able to have both perspectives. You should have the perspective of the queer theorists.
That's right.
And you should have the perspective of the people who say, this is where all this comes from.
That's right.
And if you don't do that, then you limit information. And some of that information, especially the stuff that you're talking about that seems to be absolutely true and provable, that's you're letting that stuff go through because it opposes your ideology, and that by definition makes you a cult member.
That's exactly right. So the cult, and I don't know if you know who Robert Lifton is. Robert Lifton he's kind of weird now. He's still alive, but he was like you would talk about gangsters doing infiltration. This dude was in Hong Kong in the 1950s, and he started interviewing guys that were going through Mao Zedong's brainwashing prisons. And then when they would get thrown out of China after they'd get out of the prison after 3-4 years of getting brainwashed, he started interviewing them, like, what did Mao do? How did he, like, literally the title of his book that he wrote off of this is called Thought Reform and the Psychology of Totalism, a study of brainwashing in China, which is Xinao in Mandarin. I know a little Mandarin. And so the idea is that they were doing what Mao called ideological transformation or ideological remolding in these prisons. And he wanted to know how it worked. What's the psychological dynamic? And he said there are 8 primary characteristics, and God only knows if I could rattle off 8 things from memory, but the first one is milieu control. In other words, you have to completely control the environment of the people that are within it. And so you can't let them have outside information. You can't let them get near people who are raising uncomfortable questions. You have to say that those people are a danger to what Mao called democratic centralism, or we would say Joe Rogan's a danger to our democracy. I think they said when you took ivermectin or something like that, right? And so you have to control the environment people are in, and then there's other things like mystical manipulation into a sacred science and all this other. There's 8 of them he has, which is finally at the end, which it's got doctrine over person, but he calls it like the expiration. That's not the right word, but it's the dispensing of the person. So the people who go along with it, who are in the cult, are treated as people, and the people who don't go along with it have to be treated as non-people. And that's Mao Zedong gave a famous speech in 1957 where he actually said, to not have a correct political orientation is like not having a soul. So you're no better than a capitalist running dogs. You're no better than the dogs. Well, I mean, we like dogs, but you know what I mean, how he would have meant it. And so it's like you're no better than an animal if you don't go along with this. And that's what you're saying. That's a cult. And all this bears the hallmarks of a cult.
And it feels like that is a natural pattern that humans fall into.
This digital verification system, according to Lindsay, could be pushed through by leveraging fear and societal disruption created by unchecked immigration and rising crime. The ultimate fear is that these systems would create an Orwellian surveillance state under the guise of security and order. The conversation ends on a note of warning Americans and freedom-loving people to be wary of such strategies that, under crisis, could impose controls that diminish liberty. Bible Describes UFO? Back in the realm of ancient mysteries, Joe Rogan and David Halthouse dove into a fascinating interpretation of a biblical text. The prophet Ezekiel's vision in the Old Testament. Joe noted that Ezekiel's description in chapter 1 is often brought up by people who believe in UFOs or ancient astronaut theories. Joe reads passages from Ezekiel chapter 1, which describes a strange and powerful sight. Ezekiel saw an immense storm cloud from the north with lightning, a huge ball of fire. Within the fire were 4 creatures that looked like humans, but had 4 faces: human, lion, ox, eagle, and 4 wings. Their legs were straight columns and hoofed feet that sparkled. They had human hands under their wings. They moved straight forward without turning.
It's the most bizarre depiction. I saw an immense dust storm come from the north, an immense cloud with lightning flashing from it, a huge ball of fire glowing like bronze. Within the fire were what looked like 4 creatures vibrant with life. Each had the form of a human being, but each also had 4 faces and 4 wings. Their legs were as sturdy and straight as columns, but their feet were hooved like those of a calf and sparkled with the fire like burnished bronze. On all 4 sides under their wings they had human hands. All 4 had faces and the wings touching one another. They turned neither one way nor the other. They went straight forward. Their faces looked like this. In front of a human face, on the right side, the face of a lion. On the left, the face of an ox. And in the back, the face of an eagle. So much for the faces. The wings were spread out with the tips of one pair touching the creature on either side. The other pair of wings covered its body. Each creature went straight ahead. Wherever the spirit went, they went. They didn't turn as they want. The 4 creatures looked like blazing fire or fiery torches. Tongues of fire shot back and forth between the creatures, and out of the fire, bolts of lightning. The creatures flashed back and forth like strikes of lightning. As I watched the 4 creatures, I saw something that looked like a wheel on the ground beside each of the 4-faced creatures. This is what the wheels looked like. They were identical wheels, sparkling like diamonds in the sun. They looked like they were wheels within wheels, like a gyroscope. They went in any of the 4 directions they faced, but straight, not veering off. The rims were immense, circled with eyes. When the living creatures went, the wheels went. When the living creatures lifted off, the wheels lifted off. Wherever the spirit went, they went, the wheels sticking right with them. For the spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels. When the creatures went, the wheels went. When the creatures stopped, the wheels stopped. When the creatures lifted off, the wheels lifted off, because the spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels. Over the heads of the living creatures was something like a dome, shimmering like the light, like a sky full of cut glass, vaulted over their heads. Under the dome, one set of wings was extended towards the other, with another set of wings covering their bodies. When they moved, I heard their wings. It was like the roar of a great waterfall, like the voice of the strong God, like the noise of a battlefield. When they stopped, they folded their wings. And then, as they stood with folded wings, there was a voice above the dome over their heads. Above the dome, there was something that looked like a throne, sky blue like a sapphire, with a human-like figure towering above the throne. From what I could see, from the waist up, he looked like burnished bronze, and from the waist down, like a blazing fire, brightness everywhere. The way a rainbow springs out of a sky on a rainy day, that's what it was like. It turned out to be the glory of God. Like, what the fuck, man?
I mean, to anybody that's done DMT or ayahuasca or really tripped on psychedelics, though, you read that and it feels sort of familiar.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The glory of God.
Yeah, the glory of
and
God.
And these visions of these...
Yeah.
And this is where it gets really weird. According to Joe and David, as Ezekiel watched the creatures, he saw something beside them that looked like a wheel on the ground. These wheels were identical, sparkling, and looked like wheels within wheels, like a gyroscope. They can move in any direction without veering off. And the strange part, wherever the spirit went, they went. The wheels are sticking right with them. Some interpretations gaining traction in the mid-20th century from authors like Eric von Däniken suggest these descriptions are actually accounts of encounters with advanced spacecraft or extraterrestrial technology. The creatures could be beings or parts of a machine, and the wheels within wheels might be some kind of propulsion or navigation system. Joe and David also discuss the parallels between these kinds of intense biblical visions and experiences people report while on psychedelics like DMT. Joe said that anyone who has done DMT or ayahuasca reads Ezekiel's description and it feels familiar. The vision of constantly changing, dynamic, and otherworldly beings, that's a key part of the DMT experience. It's not static, but constantly morphing and moving. Joe mentioned that researchers at the University of Jerusalem even have a theory that the burning bush Moses saw in the Bible might have been the result of a psychedelic experience, possibly from DMT, found in the acacia trees common in that region.
And the fact that these things are like constantly changing their appearance.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing about the DMT experience, is like, it's not a stationary, static experience. It's like constantly changing and moving in front of you. And to see something like that in the sky. And the fact that it's so noteworthy that they wrote it down in the fucking Bible.
Maybe he found some of those mushrooms, you know?
Yeah, maybe.
In the cow shit.
Well, you know, there's a university in Israel, I think it's the University of Jerusalem, that theorized that the Moses experience of the burning bush was a DMT experience. And that what this is like, when you say Moses saw the burning bush, well, what kind of bush would burn that would give you a psychedelic experience? Well, the acacia tree. The acacia tree, which is very common to that area, is rich with DMT. And how do you psychoactively acquire DMT? You smoke it. Mm-hmm. So you're smoking this tree, this burning bush, and you're seeing God. And God has brought you 10 commandments of how to live life, which sounds like a lot of what you experience in the DMT experience. When you have that and you have these contact with the entities, they kind of give you guidelines of how to live.
Yeah. It felt to me like a massive amount of information being downloaded, but that it was guiding in nature.
Yeah. but very difficult to hold on to.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, what is it? So, like, it's probably something you'd want to write down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the 10 Commandments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, again, back to the Krishnaism, Prabhupada, that was his thing. It was like, you can't hold on to it with psychedelics alone, and you don't need psychedelics to get a hold of it in the first place, was what he was preaching.
And he probably recognized that the problem with taking psychedelics is that it's so accessible. You just take it. I mean, it's the beautiful thing about it, but you also could say without...
The idea is that these intense, seemingly supernatural visions described in ancient texts could potentially have a chemical explanation, or perhaps the substances allow access to seeing things that are always there but unseen. The fact that Ezekiel's visions was so powerful and strange that it was included and preserved in the Bible highlights how profound an experience it must have been, whatever its true nature. The Walton Case. On episode 1597 of the Joe Rogan Experience, Joe sat down with Travis Walton to talk about aliens, telepathy, lost knowledge, and secrets governments don't want you to know. One story in particular took center stage: the alien abduction of Travis Walton. It was November 5th, 1975. Travis Walton, a forestry worker in Arizona, was part of a 7-man logging crew making their way home through a wooded area when they saw it, a glowing object hovering above the ground, unlike anything they'd seen. Curiosity overtook fear, and Travis got out to investigate. What happened next would become one of the most enduring and controversial abduction stories in modern history. A beam of light shot from the object and slammed into his chest, lifting him off his feet and throwing him backwards. His co-workers, shocked and terrified, fled the scene. When they returned moments later, Travis was gone.
Let's take it back to the day that this happened. You're 22, you're logging, you're in the woods. Tell me what happened.
Well, it's just, when you're done working hard physical labor, everybody's kind of jacked up, and there was a whole lot of chatter in the car. We're just talking away, it's starting to get dark. We just loaded up our equipment. We're headed out. And I looked up ahead, and I saw this kind of glow coming through the trees. First, I thought, no big deal, it was deer hunting season. Thought maybe there was some hunters camped up on the hill up there. Maybe light shining through a tent. It was still something really strange, kind of caught my eye. And one by one, the other guys in the crew started looking, but nobody said, "Oh my God, what's that?" or anything like that. It was just kind of an idle curiosity at first. But when we burst into the clearing where we could see the source of this glow, it was just, whoa, it was just mind-blowing instantly. I inexplicably got out of the truck and ran toward this thing. But I thought it was just going to take off, be gone in a flash. And
so when you say in the clearing, so are you driving on a dirt road?
Yeah, it's a dirt road. Trees are real thick. This was a part of the contract we hadn't cut in yet, so the trees were a lot thicker there, except for this clearing. And we weren't the only ones that saw it. We found out later. Sheriff had on file people who were in the area that saw it, hunters and fishermen over there at Black Canyon Lake. And the movement that they described was what the crew described when it left. Of course, I didn't see that, but...
What did they describe?
They described this glow rising up and streaking off, I believe they said, toward the northeast. There were some people that probably don't want to be public about it, but there was one guy who was just deer hunting, and he worked in military intelligence, and he stuck by what he and his wife saw. They were both together. And another guy that was at Black Canyon Lake, I won't mention any of those guys' names unless they chose to, but found out later that there was more official investigation that nobody talked about at the time. Immediately, though, this was all nonsense, and these guys murdered him, and even my oldest brother, he didn't believe me. He thought they had killed me. What we were doing with the brush that we cut was piling it up. There were piles that were in the clearing so that the Forest Service could burn these piles, when the conditions were right, where it wouldn't spread, wet conditions otherwise, but burn up this excess material to reduce the fire danger in the woods. And my oldest brother was tearing those piles apart. He was certain that my body was under there. And there were some pretty testy confrontations between him and my brother.
Jacques Vallée and James Fox corroborated his story in episode 1574, mentioning how a massive search followed, turning into a national story. Days passed with no sign of him. Then, 5 days later, Travis called his brother from a payphone in Heber, Arizona, 30 miles away. He was dazed, disoriented, and deeply shaken. What he later described was no dream or hallucination. It was vivid.
Truck, and he got up as this thing was spooling up, according to him. It was, and he tried to make a run for the truck, and some kind of energy force hit him and knocked him like a Raggedy Ann doll all the way across like 60 feet, and he landed, and those guys took off thinking they were next, and they left him for dead out there in the woods. And they're driving down the road, hightailing it out of there, and then the driver realizes, like, we can't leave Travis, man. We got to go back and get Travis. And they were all freaked out, thinking that they were going to be next. Finally, they argued, and he said, look, man, I'm going back to get Travis, whether you guys are with me or not. And if you want, you guys can stay here. I'll come back and get you. They're like, no, let's stick together. So they all stick together in the truck. They turned around. They went back. UFO gone. Travis gone. They go down into town, and they have to tell the authorities. And you can imagine, 1975, they're telling local authorities. And there's a small enough town where everybody kind of knows everybody. Hey, our buddy got abducted by a flying saucer, and he's gone. They were like, yeah, you guys are all under arrest for homicide. We'll start an intense search the next day with helicopters, dogs. It made world news all across, as you can imagine. These guys took lie detector tests. They said, they stuck to their story, even though they knew that people wouldn't believe them. They thought they'd killed Travis, and they buried him somewhere in the hills. So they're all doing this 5-day intensive search. Well, Travis Walton reappears 5 days later with facial growth. Here's the really fascinating part of this story that I find incredible, because again, don't look at what the phenomenon does. Sometimes you look at what they don't do. Well, they didn't drop him off where they picked him up. That was the most I've been out there. It's a really remote area in the mountains, in the forest. He would not have made it back alive. Drop him off in the middle of town, they didn't do that either. But they dropped him off right on the outskirts of town, so he could they did it in a little valley, so they minimized any possibility of their exposure. They dropped him off in a place where he could get help, but they would minimize being seen. They did it at night. And 5 days later, he reappears, and of course, he's back, and he recounts the same.
As Travis remembered it, the moment he woke up on the ship, a soft light glowed above him, thinking he was in a hospital. The beings, small, gray-skinned, bald, with large dark eyes. They wore uniform-like clothing and did not speak. Their presence was emotionless, clinical, and terrifying, approached without a word, without a twitch of concern. And that terrified him more than anything. Were they alive? Were they machines? They seemed alive, but alive in a way humans aren't. Not emotionally reactive, not expressive, just present. And after decades of reflection, Travis believes their lack of response wasn't indifference. It was mastery of another form of being, one that doesn't require words or faces to speak. He never claimed they were monsters, only different enough to frighten us. But perhaps in their world, their behavior was natural, even compassionate, in a way we can't yet recognize.
Story is, he woke up. It's funny, actually. I met with Travis a handful of times, and I sat down with him, and a lot of times when I really want to absorb a story, I close my eyes, and then their words recreate the visuals for me, so I see it. And so that's what I did with Travis at dinner, just the two of us. And I closed my eyes, and he told me he woke up on board. He was on a table And he was kind of blurry-eyed, but he could see these little beings, and he initially thought, what am I looking at here? Where am I? And he saw these little beings, and typical beings, they're diminutive body, big head, big almond-shaped black eyes, and he was absolutely terrified. And he grabbed some sort of instrument that was on the table, and he said that he even touched one of them, and he goes, I was surprised at how light it was. It moved really easily. And he started aggressively swinging some instrument that he found on the table towards these things, and then they scurried off and left the room. He went off, they went to the right, he went left, and he was walking down a hallway, and he said, you can imagine like polished aluminum. There were no seams, no rivets, no weld marks, but it was all solid, like one solid piece. And he said it was tight, and my shoulders were rubbing on either side of this hallway. And I was running down the hallway, totally freaked out, didn't know where he was, and he could having a hard time breathing. And he took a left, and he went into this room, and there was a command chair, he sat in the command chair, and he started playing with buttons. He was trying to get out. He just wanted to get out. And all of a sudden, there was a holographic projection of like a star chart that was holographic that appeared. And he was moving with these buttons, and everything started to move. And he thought, my God, if I'm on a spaceship, I could crash this thing. I don't know what I'm doing. And then two very humanoid-looking people, beautiful, angelic people with these glass bulbs came in with tight-fitting suits on. And he said, oh, my God, you guys are here to save me. Thank God. But they wouldn't talk with him. They just took him by the arm, and they escorted him out. He went down a ramp, and then he said, I was either in a hangar or I was in a big, huge, another spaceship. I don't know if it was a huge hangar on the ground or if it was another spaceship, but there were lots of discs of different sizes parked inside this hangar-looking thing, but it was indoors. And they escorted him out. They met with a woman. I said, well, how do you know it was a woman? He said, it was a woman. It had a glass bulb, and they put something over his mouth, and he kind of fought, but he said he was weak. And the next thing he knew, he woke up in a field and looked up, and the disc was just departing, and it was 5 days later.
What sets Travis's account apart isn't just the detail, it's the corroboration. All 6 of his co-workers were questioned and given polygraph tests. 5 passed with flying colors. 1 test was inconclusive. None showed signs of deception. Travis himself underwent multiple lie detector tests over the years and passed them all. He was also evaluated for mental illness or delusions, and none were found. His story didn't waver over decades. It held its shape even under public scrutiny.
And they all passed, and I interviewed a number of the eyewitnesses that were with him at the time. And there's a movie made about it called Travis, I believe. You should definitely look into it, but a documentary. But he was really funny. He was working at like a Walmart.
You were going to say pass a polygraph test.
Yeah, they all did. Yeah. But I was talking to one of the witnesses. I'll never forget this. And I was like, God, what did you see? Can you describe what the disc looked like? And he goes, you ever seen like a brand new Corvette? Like that beautiful brand new Corvette? And I said, yeah, I have. He goes, it was more perfect than that. It was just this perfect disc. And he said it was lit up, like you could see these almost little windows in it, and it just suspended in this darkness, and it was kind of just wobbling there. But the way he describes it, he made the correlation of a Corvette, a brand new Corvette. Isn't that funny? Yeah. And
Joe Rogan, intrigued by Travis's firsthand account in episode 1597, pointed out something most people overlooked: communication. The aliens didn't speak, yet Travis somehow understood them. Joe mused that perhaps telepathy wasn't science fiction. It was simply a more advanced form of communication. We already transmit data invisibly across devices. Who's to say beings hundreds or thousands of years ahead of us couldn't develop direct mind-to-mind transmission? Travis also reflected on the blank expressions of the beings. They showed no fear, no aggression, no empathy. They were silent observers. But what if, as Travis later considered, their stillness wasn't robotic, it was efficient? If a species communicates purely through thought, facial expressions become obsolete. Humans wear their emotions on their faces because we need to. But if every feeling, every intention, every nuance of thought could be instantly shared, then smiles, frowns, and words might be unnecessary relics. If you like this video and the wild stories from Joe Rogan, you'll probably dig my other videos too. And it's got just as much crazy stuff, so go ahead, give it a shot. I'm Mickey V. Have a great day.